Hi everyone, and welcome to In Deep Geek Live. This is my Christmas charity live stream. If you're looking for insightful comment about your favorite books and TV shows, maybe skip forward to the next week, because this is a little bit of fun. I've got a few guests lined up who are just going to be jumping on, jumping off. A few of my friends, a few people I've collaborated with through the year. So we'll keep it relatively light, but this is a charity live stream. So before we get into it, what I wanted to do was just let you know what the charity is. Médecins Sans Frontières, Doctors Without Borders, is an amazing charity. This is a charity that's been around for a while, and what they do is they look to see where is there no medical care. War zones, places where diseases are endemic, places where for whatever reason people are excluded from medicine. That's where they run towards. That's where they send doctors to. So at this time in my culture, this is where peace and goodwill toward all, and this is where we look to see how can we help others who are perhaps less fortunate than ourselves. Commend this charity to you, people who are literally looking after the most vulnerable people in the entire world right now. So if you have enjoyed anything I've done during this year, if you are feeling generous, if you have the spare money, please, there is a link somewhere here, whether you're watching live or back a little bit later, to Médecins Sans Frontières, and I would love you to donate. But the way we're going to run this is by having special guests appearing randomly throughout the stream, and I've got one lined up already. He's been waiting very patiently, so why don't we go and say hello to Mark Huntz. How are you, sir?
Good. How are you doing? Is that how do you say that again in French? The MSC. I want to try to say it.
Médecins Sans Frontières.
Médecins Sans Frontières. I got the last part.
Almost right, I would say. I mean, I'm not a fluent French speaker, but it's better than your British accent. I'll put it that way.
Hell yeah.
What I want to do today, though, is that I've got a few questions from my patrons that I do want to go through. I'm going to throw a couple of A Song of Ice and Fire things at you in a moment, but I would just love to use this time to be a little retrospective about the year. What have you most enjoyed about this year in terms of TV, books, that kind of stuff?
House of the Dragon, right? For sure. I was afraid, right? With how season 8 was received, that this show would they'd be afraid to go there, make it for the fans, or for the book fans rather, and they would just go for the spectacle, and they didn't do that. And this season made me confident in everybody who's behind the series and their ability and what's going to come in these next couple of seasons. So definitely House of the Dragon. As far as books, Dune. I'm on God Emperor of Dune right now, so. Yeah.
Just going into the chat, I just saw Andrew Kay saying that could have had a bit of fun with that jumper and the green screen. I did actually last year. I've learned my lesson from last year. I had the green screen behind me. I had my green Christmas jumper on, and I basically disappeared, which was a lot of fun. But I decided this year I would not go down that route. And who else was there? I was just going to Brothers Crin saying Tom pronunciation est parfait, Robert. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I won't get any marks out of 10 for Sir Hunt's pronunciation, but let's just take. I was going to throw a couple of random A Song of Ice and Fire questions at you as I have you here. So let's go with this one from Lady Pushkins. Season's salutations. Back to you. Wishing you and Dan the warmest and fuzziest of Christmases. Thank you. What is your favourite tinfoil theory? But now, actually, you are starting to think maybe not, or that maybe in the future that it won't actually happen in the future books. So, is there anything that you had as a tinfoil theory that you now go, actually, you know what? I've been rereading the books. I've watched House of the Dragon. I'll start off on this one just to give you a moment to think about this, because there was, I think I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, when History of Westeros did their interview with George R.R. Martin, somebody pointed out to me that he talked about the Doom of Valyria as a magical accident Now, that I find absolutely fascinating because I have this wonderful and complicated conspiracy theory about how the Doom of Valyria happened, all to do with the Faceless Men and the Lannister Gold and the Maesters. And I'm now starting to wonder if he thinks this was an accident. Does this actually mean this was an accident? So I have downgraded my Faceless Men conspiracy theory just a notch or two because of what he said. But Mark, is there anything that you, just over the last year or so, I know you've been rereading the books like crazy, is there anything that you used to fundamentally believe but now do not so much?
Well, commenting on what you were saying, it's still a chance for it to be an accident, but also involve the Lannisters and the Faceless. Like, maybe maybe they didn't want all of Valyria to be destroyed. So in that sense, like, whatever your theory is, like, I mean, Faceless Men were started in the Doom of Valyria, right? So I imagine it has something to do with that. But maybe whatever they were doing to actually, like, cause everything to ignite, maybe, there's still a chance for that. But as far as a tinfoil theory that I liked, and then now don't like, I would say the idea that Ned, I think we mentioned, I can't remember if I mentioned it in the stream that we did here or the one on my channel, but basically the idea that Ned is cheated on Catelyn at all, right? He's too honorable. I guess, well, it's not really tinfoil. I don't have a good tinfoil one. I feel like there's theories that I liked before I started reading the books, and once I read the book, I was like, okay, I could see why someone would go that way, but I don't personally see what, like, I could do one like that, but I don't, like, tinfoil to me, like, Tyrion's a secret Lannister, you know what I mean? Or, I'm sorry, Tyrion is a secret Targaryen.
It's a very secret Lannister. We've got an extra guest who suddenly appeared, who I will just suddenly add to the stream. Look who it is. It's Helen, the clueless fangirl. Hello, how are you, Helen? You're looking ravishing as always.
Thank you. I'm not sure if you can hear me. Can you actually hear me?
We can, yes.
Hi, boys.
And if you could tell us exactly how to pronounce Médecins, frontières, we would hugely appreciate it.
Sorry, can you repeat it?
You might be able to. We can hear you. You clearly can't hear us. Do not worry. Welcome. We're doing a kind of retrospective of the year as much as anything else. What has been your highlight, TV-wise, of the whole year?
Oh, easy. House of the Dragon.
Awesome.
I mean, coming from me, as a Lord of the Ring YouTuber, or I like to call myself a YouTuber, randomly YouTubing. But yeah, no, I fully admit I love the show.
Awesome. Just quickly in the chat, 26 Art Girl and Clueless Fangirl. Thank you so much. Very generous donations. And Lady Pushkin saying bordering on Giles Brandreth with that jumper, which is a very niche comment, but I will take it as a compliment. Thank you very much. What I thought I would do, just to kind of structure this a little bit, is to go through. I did a tweet, I don't know, about a week or so ago. It's kind of unofficial best of the year. I know we all loved House of the Dragon, but across everything you've seen this year, what would you say? I'll start with you, Helen, and then maybe Mark. What would you say is the best individual acting of the year out of everything you've seen this year?
Paddy. And I do not, I'm not a big award season person. I don't really care for the Oscars or any of, because this is not, the people are not voting for that. Although I think there are People Choice Awards. But definitely Paddy. I think, which episode was it? The Throne Room, like the Christmas supper, his last supper episode. Which one was it?
Episode 8, I think it was.
Yeah, I mean, his acting there alone, I loved it. And I didn't know him. I don't know. I mean, you're British. I think maybe you've seen him before. I've never heard of that man in my life. Obviously, I knew Matt Smith. And I would have said, if you would have asked me before, I would have said, yeah, easily, Matt Smith will outplay them all. But I loved him.
Well, I wouldn't disagree. I thought that for me, I would agree. Actually, that is probably as an episode. I would hold up episode 8 of Andor as well with what's his name, Gollum. Andy Serkis, I thought was fantastic.
Gollum.
In that. You know who I mean. Andy Serkis
Yeah.
was absolutely amazing in that. But I think Paddy Considine, yes, as English, I have indeed heard of him beforehand, and he is excellent. But I'm so delighted that the wider world now has a chance to see him in all of his glory. But Mark, what about you? What's your? Doesn't have to be House of the Dragon, but I know you were.
Yeah, I was about to say it's gonna be House of the Dragon. Probably Emily Carey. When she played the younger version of Alicent, just to get that out of the way. Obviously, Paddy Considine, right? But I never heard of her before. But I thought for sure going into the show, okay, it's gonna be really easy for me to not like Alicent really at all. You know what I mean? I didn't think she was going to have any redeeming qualities, because when you read Fire and Blood, she doesn't. You know what I mean? She's like portrayed as this manipulative person, but then when you see her on the TV show, the way that they wrote her arc, like in the first 5 episodes, amazing. I honestly liked her a little bit more than Rhaenyra until we had the time jump, obviously. But as far as outside of that, probably Angela Bassett in Black Panther 2, because I forgot how good of an actress she was.
Absolutely, yeah. So yeah, that was absolutely awesome. So it was So this is one of the things I thought worked so well with House of the Dragon, was the way that everyone I know who'd read the book hated Team Green. It was just like, obviously, Team Black is like the team to support. But then on the show, they managed to not make us sympathetic towards Alicent and people like that, but they made us understand it a little bit more, I would say. Let's go as I've got you here. I know you generally don't do a Song of Ice and Fire stuff, Helen, but I have got some questions which I have actually, my patrons specifically said, if Helen's coming on, can you ask her this? So I've got some Helen specific questions coming up. Do not worry.
First, I want to mention before we say that, you know why I always donate to a good cause, but I thank you for wearing our ugly Christmas sweater. So I gave this Christmas sweaters to all of my friends last year. Was it last year or 2 years ago? I don't know.
I don't know.
So yeah, so good. I haven't seen the others wearing it, but you're a good friend, Robert.
I'm the only one who appreciates you. That's it. Mark's disappeared. In that case, I did say everyone can jump on and off as they wish. So let's go. I will do one of these if you have Helen questions. This is reflective rambling. If you have an elf-apologist guest, which I do, and that's you, by the way, can they make a case for why Feanor should not get coal in his stocking? Why on earth should we coal in his stocking? This is quite a culturally specific thing, I suspect. You get coal in your stocking if you're bad, if you're naughty. If Santa doesn't wish to give you a present, you'll get what Feanor? Why would you? Why does Feanor deserve to be a good person?
No,
he's the baddie, surely.
Yeah. The thing is, I mean, Cassie obviously wants, because I'm, as you call me, an elf apologist. But I mean, you clearly see that Tolkien loved that character, because I think it's more fun to write baddies actually than to write just the goody elves. And he's so important to the Legendarium and to the story. But yes, we need baddies who forward the story. So no, he doesn't have, for me, he doesn't have a lot of redeeming qualities, but you need a good baddie for a story. So I like him.
So you like him, but you think he is a baddie. Let's be clear. He is, yes.
Yes. Yeah. So all that justice for Feanor, that's which I don't know, is maybe Lexi coming on later. Lexi could argue. She could give you a few points.
No, sadly no. But I will have Lexi back on again at some point next year, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So
She's
Feanor
a fangirl.
is definitely on Santa's naughty list. So let's leave it at that. But I'd love actually your take on. Mark has a radical view, I think, on one of the other is he a goodie or a baddie people in House of the Dragon. So Mark, when he was last on my stream, came out with the rather challenging view that the hero of the entirety of House of the Dragon, Fire and Blood, is indeed Damon. Now, Mark, do you want to justify this, and then I'll let Helen tell you why you're wrong?
At least Mark didn't say Otto, so you know.
At least he didn't say Otto. This is good.
To be fair, that was episode 5, right?
Okay,
so that was before that scene in episode 10. So I mean, I could play any side, but I mean, obviously it's changed slightly because he did that to Rhaenyra. You know what I mean? Like that. It's when you realize he killed his wife with a rock, right? It's not. I wouldn't say shocking, but I definitely was like, "Oh my God, did he really just do that?" And then, so I mean, I could play that part. Damon, right? If it wasn't for him, well, the Targaryens would be nowhere in this era because Viserys is kind of weak. You need someone like Damon to not do what he did to Rhaenyra, but to do that to everybody else who opposes House Targaryen, right? So to, they're at their strongest when you have someone. I mean, without getting into too specific stuff, but usually when there's someone like Damon, who's next in line for the Iron Throne or sitting the Iron Throne, a lot of the things that cause inner conflict in House Targaryen get settled, right? So if Damon was king and his son and daughter started this war or whatever, like potentially before he died, right, he would have settled it by saying, okay, you guys are gonna get married, right? Whereas Viserys is too afraid to make that decision, and yes, incest is bad, but not in that world. You got to keep the blood pure. So Damon would have been like, okay, I'm gonna do whatever I have to do to make sure the war doesn't happen, and Viserys did that to the best of his power, but he's not Damon, right? So we know Viserys looks at Damon and he's like, oh, I wish I could do jousting, but I like partying. Oh, I wish I would be one to play in tourneys, but I like hanging out with my daughter and making sure we get these meetings done. You know what I mean? So Damon, I felt like would handle what happened in it. Like if you were to reverse the roles but had the same personality, that probably wouldn't happen. You know?
I love the idea. Before you, I love the idea of Viserys. I'd saying I love to do some jousting, but I'm here for the partying. It's just like this is perfect. Sorry, Helen, go on.
No, plus it's his bloodline that survives, right? So
he does win.
He does win. Yeah, so spoiler alert, I should say, for anyone who doesn't want to know what happens in House of the Dragon. But basically, yeah, the people who survive the Dance of the Dragons are his children. Pretty much that's it. So everything we have that follows on down from that, all the way down to Daenerys, that's all from Damon. So they've all got a little bit of heritage from him. Do you have any other random controversial thoughts about House of the Dragon, though, Mark? I mean, I know you like to have a few controversial thoughts every now and then.
King Aegon II gets a bad rap. Okay,
the Mad King gets a bad rap. Okay,
no, not the Mad King.
What
King
is it
Aegon
about
II,
the genocidal king that was good?
Aegon II on the show.
So Aegon II. Sorry,
yeah.
I thought you were. Sorry, I thought you said the Mad King. So I thought it was Aerys II. So Aegon II. Okay.
I could do that. The Mad King is misunderstood. He's got severe mental illness, and the realm is such where they see him, and he hasn't, clipped his nails. He hasn't cut his hair. He hadn't really been outside of the Red Keep in years, and they see him and they go, "Oh, everything's lost." Really, if you had all these maesters, maybe counsel him correctly, and maybe I don't know. I back away from that one.
You probably want your Mago the Cruel spin-off, like me. Like,
Yes.
give us that, please. That would be my wish. I don't want the Aegon the Conqueror. I want Maegor the Cruel.
Sons of the
that would be
Dragon.
quite dark. I also think having... I've just made a couple of Maegor videos, actually, collaborations with History of Westeros, which will be coming out, I think, in the new year. And having gone through and analysed the character again, I think if Henry Cavill is going to be any Targaryen, I would love him to be Maegor the Cruel, because he's got the physique for it, and that would work. And it would be so much against his normal character type of being like this goody hero. So you wouldn't want Aegon the Conqueror, you would want Maegor? Both of you?
I would take an Aegon the Conqueror if it just led into it. So like a movie or something, just to set it up, because so many people have wanted to see Field of Fire, right? Also Dorne being burned. Those two things I think would make... Or, I mean, obviously there's several other things that happen, right? We could find out what happens to Rhaenys, but ultimately I would definitely want like a Maegor Sons of the Dragon show, for sure. Just, that would be... make for really good TV. It'd be dark, but like you said, Henry Cavill would kill that role. Do y'all think that his mother, Visenya, gave him steroids, and this is why he was infertile? Remember, at 4 years old, he was given a sword and killed a cat. But also, when he was 12, he was unhorsing men way older than him. So, like, it kind of,
Well, the question is, who's his actual daddy? Because is it, like, what did Visenya actually do?
I think it's Aegon's, but I think she...
You really think? Yeah?
Yes. Okay, so, like, his build is the...
magic to conceive that child, because...
For sure, but I think he... so, like, Aegon, his two sons are, like, his personality split in half, right? So you have Aenys, who's, like... all the parts of Aegon that loved Rhaenys, right? So they loved musicians, they loved entertaining fancy things. And then you have the witch hardcore version that went into, what did they call them? Sorcerer princes or something in Old Valyria, where like a lot of the time sorcerer princes would take two wives, even because usually they wouldn't be able to ride a dragon, but it wasn't a common thing for people to have two different wives in Valyria. So when Aegon did that, and married Visenya, I think that showed a bit of his personality. Yeah, I don't know what I'm getting at here, but yeah.
Well, let's go to another question for as I say, we've got some specific questions for Helen here. Mara Lee saying, I don't know if Helen, the clueless fangirl, will be one of your guests. She is. But if so, I would love to hear her speak. And I don't know, your reputation clearly precedes you, but I would love to hear her speak about the big baddies in both A Song of Ice and Fire and The Lord of the Rings, and why we find them intriguing. What is their importance in the hero's journey, etc.? So, well, I mean, there we go. Mara would love to hear you talk about baddies.
Well,
why do you love a baddie, Helen?
Regarding which show? Is it like Lord of, or which canon?
Either or both, I think. Whatever works for you.
Well, let's talk about another one. Let's talk about Star Wars, because I do think in Star Wars you have epic baddies who actually go through a hero's journey. Look at Anakin. Anakin is one of my favorite characters. This is, sorry. So, and I love that Star Wars, or George Lucas, gave an actual... We got to know him as children from the OG movies as the baddie, the Dark Lord in with that voice and everything. And you then with the prequels got to know the other side of the kid growing up, without his mother, and then the Jedi basically fucked him up because he grew up with a brother and not with a mentor and father, and like he should have. And I love that, but he is a baddie, but I love that he was given a hero's journey. So I think there's so many in different fandoms. Baddies are, for me, so fascinating because they're not black and white, not even with Tolkien, because a lot of people, say Tolkien writes black and white characters, especially elves. And now we finally got to show with the Rings of Power and with the OG canon, the Silmarillion, where you can see, the elves and all these characters are three-dimensional, and they are not just good and not just bad. So yeah, I think. But my favorite baddie fandom is Star Wars because of all the Sith Lords and all the lore behind it. So I crave for more Star Wars baddies.
Oh, you got a kitty cat.
Yes, sorry, they are.
Awesome. Mark, what's your take on the baddies? Do you have a favorite, other than Damon, obviously? Do you have a favorite baddie in literature?
Leto Atreides II. The man is crazy. Oh. He's 4,000-year-old. Okay, so I don't know a lot about...
This is Dune, for those who do not know what we're talking about here.
Yes, Dune. So I didn't know a lot about the hero's journey, but I did learn from the first Dune book. People say that Paul's journey is not a traditional hero's journey, right? No. And then he ends up morphing into someone who he hates. Like it's literally like you either live, you die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. Like in Batman: The Dark Knight, that's what Paul did. He saw it happening, and then he died. But then you get, or he didn't die. He walked down to the desert, then came back as the prophet, and then was killed randomly by some dude in a yellow robe. But his son didn't choose that. His son was like, no, I'm going to stay alive. I'm going to do what I can to adapt myself and make this golden path and realize my father's vision. And then he lives for 3,500 years. And then you realize through all these other people's perspectives, and also through in the beginning of the book, you first learn, oh, he's successful. He's now morphing into a worm, but he's brought back his main, Paul's main person that he loved, with Duncan Idaho, right? He's brought him back like who knows how many times, and they keep dying. And the Tleilaxu are like building all. So you're just kind of discovering what happens if Paul were to stay alive. He'd become eventually this God Emperor villain that everybody hates. And now what he did against basically the Emperor in the beginning, the first book, what he did to the Harkonnens, and then by basically usurping Shaddam's throne, it's going to have to happen to his son, Leto II. So it's really he's probably my favorite villain. And he's not even a full-on villain. So it's like you were saying with Star Wars Helen. It's like it's one of the best journeys I've ever read, listened to. So, and I haven't read very many books, but I'm saying it's really good. A lot of people agree with that, too, because when you look at, like, Leto in the fandom, very popular.
I mean,
and shout out to Quinn. He has an epic Dune channel. I don't know what's his name on YouTube now.
Quinn's Ideas.
Yeah,
he's the one who got me into like watching one of his videos. Right, it's like In Deep Geek. I told Robert about this before. It's like before I read the books. Right, I'd watch one of Robert's videos and he'd say some random fact. And I'd be like, what? The show did not talk about that. Right, and the same thing happened with Dune. Right, so I randomly found the old Dune movies, the one from the 80s, and I started watching it, and then I went on YouTube and I was like, okay, somebody's got to explain what this is. So then obviously Quinn's video is the first one that pops up. I watch it and I'm like, okay, this is amazing. Yeah, but now I'm reading all the books and stuff, so I can't wait for part 2 to come out. But I would say Leto, to answer your question, Robert, Leto II.
How do we stand with the pugs missing? That was one of my... The pugs, they were missing. That was a real big letdown. So okay,
we got him on House of the Dragon. We got a pug on House of the Dragon. Remember
that lady. Yeah.
She's like Olena's distant ancestor or whatever. Sorry.
Yeah, probably.
For those who don't know about the pug, way back in the 80s, there was a Dune film which was a whole lot of fun. Probably not the best adaptation ever, but it was just really good. And it had the most eclectic cast imaginable. I think it had Sting.
Yes, Sting.
And it had Patrick Stewart.
He played Fade Ralpha.
Going into battle carrying pugs.
I forgot Patrick Stewart was in that. He played Gurney Halleck. Oh my god, dude. That's how amazing the cast is. You forget. Sorry.
So it's
Kyle MacLachlan.
Kyle MacLachlan, it's a thing to behold. But it wasn't the sort of definitive version, which obviously is why we have the film we have now. But it was great. Do go back and watch that. And Dune, I have to say, I mean, it's one of the things when people are asking me what else to cover, the thing which comes up the most is Dune. There is a huge amount of love out there for Dune, it has to be said.
It's amazing. I honestly, like, you always hear people say, oh, it's the highest selling sci-fi book of all. Frank Herbert wrote something in the which is not, now that I'm learning about Roman history, it's impressive, but it's not as impressive as what the Romans did, right? But he wrote something it came out in 1965, he probably wrote it in the early 60s, that's still relevant today. Like, all of the world leaders should be forced to sit down and read Dune. And then read Dune Messiah, because it should have been one book, but it doesn't make it.
Wow, this really gets to my. I mean, this is on my list, my Christmas reading list. I have to say, it's I've read Dune, I think 3 or 4 times before, but I'm gonna reread it over Christmas. It's a fantastic book. So maybe I will expand out to Dune content, but it sounds like Mark is hinting at perhaps doing the same himself.
I've made a few Dune videos, but that was before I read the books. I have a fear, right? Like, if I make something that it won't get views, and that's a really stupid fear, but that's the only reason why I haven't done it yet. But I want to make Dune videos. That's just being honest. That's the only reason why I hadn't.
Random advice to any YouTuber or somebody who's thinking of being a YouTuber is you have to just go past the fear. Every single video you make at that time, you will look back on later and cringe at. So that might not sound encouraging, but it's supposed to be. Is that I look back on my oldest videos and I hate what I used to do.
But you were wearing a hood, so you know.
I know, and I thought I looked great. But you live and learn. I did, nobody did, but I thought it, and that's all that mattered. But you have to make the videos in order to improve, and you can't go in making extraordinarily good videos. You have to start by making the best video you can at that time, and then slightly improve it for the next one, and then slightly improve it for the next one. That's random advice for anyone who is earlier on in the YouTube journey. Just though to say, Reflective Rambling saying there are several people who have problems giving through YouTube. Is there any other way they can give? Yes, there is. If you go, I put a link down in the description pardon me, to the website. So Doctors Without Borders website, so that you can donate direct there, or this is a well-known charity, so feel free, whatever is the easiest way for you to go and do that. What I will say with YouTube, with not just this live stream, charity live stream, but any charity live stream you see, most of the times when you're sort of donating on YouTube to things, super chats or whatever, YouTube take quite a big chunk from it. For charity stuff, they take 0%. So all of your money goes direct to the charity. So do not, if you're concerned that maybe YouTube are going to take a chunk or I take a chunk, that doesn't happen. The money goes straight to the charity. So hat tip to YouTube for that. And this is the half an hour in. Reminder, this is a charity live stream. Médecins, frontières. These are people who are literally running into war zones to try and help injured people. So if you do have any spare money at this time of year, then, and I know lots of people are struggling, but if you do have any spare money at this time of year, I would highly, highly commend you to donate to this charity. Okay, let's move on to something. We're doing a sort of very vague retrospective on the year. Let's talk about visuals for TV shows. And I use this in like the broadest terms possibly, like the look of a TV show, maybe the special effects, something like that. I'll get to Mark first on this one, but in terms of the TV shows you've seen, I'll name check Rings of Power. I thought some bits of that looked absolutely amazing. I think Casa Doom looked absolutely fantastic. I think some of the landscapes they did in Numenor, sort of the big zooming things they did there were brilliant. I loved the Sandman for the visuals as well. I thought that worked really well. Are there any kind of, just in terms of the visuals of a TV show, anything you particularly like to highlight?
I enjoyed the Rings of Power TV show, everything about that. The first 2 episodes when they dropped those, like I've seen all of them, but only once, unfortunately. But when they dropped those, I felt like I was watching a new Lord of the Rings TV. Like, I know that sounds silly, but I've seen Lord of the Rings so many times, and I love it, right? The movies. So the show was just so visually appealing. It felt like I was back in, Middle Earth. I was about to say Third Earth for some reason. It's the one in the middle. Middle Earth, right? And so that I agree with you there, Robert. And then also the dragons on House of the Dragon in particular. Like Heidi, right? So when young Aemon steals, if you can even do that, Vhagar. That scene of him flying Vhagar at nighttime is visually the best thing I've ever seen in anything, aside from Dune, the new Dune movies. But that, it was just amazing. Like the backdrop of like a starry night, right? And like it's the first flight, so it was risky. And literally Vhagar tries to throw Aemon off multiple times. She's like testing him in the flight, like when she goes up really quickly and then banks down or to the side and stuff. Like I really love that. And I know it's corny that I keep going back to House of the Dragon, but that was in particular.
If you love it, that's absolutely, and I would agree. So I think some of the dragons, they could have got that very wrong, but they looked absolutely amazing. Even from that first scene when the I don't know, was it Syrax who was just flying down over towards King's Landing and then lands there at the Dragon Pit? I thought, yep, you've nailed this, haven't you? Helen, what's your in terms of visuals, just a feast for the eyes? What's the best thing you've seen this year?
Let me just come back to the dragons, because that was actually my highlight. You know, I always come for dragons. And I loved that they were so different, right? And they announced that before we saw the show. And I was like, is that really happening? Because they didn't do it, right, in Game of Thrones. Not that much, not to that extent. And I loved, you know, one looked like a reptile. One looked like, you know, with Damon's, sorry, it's really late here and I haven't slept in months. I have a newborn. So what's Damon's dragon's name? Correct. Yeah. I'm in the club now too, Mark, with no sleep.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
When you mentioned that, I was like, oh, what's that?
Was it sleep? New concept I've forgotten. No, so what's Caraxes, right?
Caraxes, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, you know, with the long neck and everything, because I loved how it was described. It wasn't fully described in the books, but I loved that, you know, they distinguished all the dragons and then characterized them, and they kind of matched to their rider, which was so cool. You know, sometimes you say that dogs and their owners look alike, so I kind of felt that for the dragon and their dragon riders, so I really love that in the show. And for another show, look, I mean, I love Blade Runner, so I really love the Endor vibes of some of the I forgot the planet's name, I'm sorry, but I really love parts of Endor. Some parts like that where he was from, I didn't really like, where his mom lived, his adopted mom. Sorry, I forgot all the names, literally. But I loved that other planet, that very Blade Runner vibey planet, because it was different, and Star Wars always gives us different, you know, visuals and planets. So I really enjoyed that one. And the one where Gollum was, that jail planet, I don't really know.
Andy Serkis. We're not just calling him Gollum. This is Andy Serkis.
Andy,
but the jail planet, yeah.
The jail planet. I really loved the visuals, you know, because everything was so sterile and white, and I really enjoyed that. It was different, you know. It wasn't like Rings of Power. Yes, there was grand and a lot of CGI, but you could see that some part. This is what I love about Star Wars. Sometimes it's run down, and sometimes it's very mechanical and new and flashy, and I really like that about Andor, that they gave us both.
Absolutely. And we have some more guests. I don't know how we're going to fit them all on the screen, but beaming in live from Ireland, we have, look at those beautiful faces, Dave and Johnny, the Melonheads. Welcome, guys.
Hello. How are we?
Very well indeed, thank you very much. So we're just talking. We're doing a sort of. I don't know if you know Helen. I don't know whether you know Mark. This is Sir Hunt's reviews. Those are the Melonheads. They do Lord of the Rings stuff. Mark is mostly House of the Dragon stuff. But there's a number of fine beards going on amongst the three of us. So And no beard on Helen, which is a shame. But I do have to say, Helen, I was just quickly flicking through the chat just while you were talking, and there was a lot of love for the cowl that I started off with.
I saw that too. Someone said, "Bring back the cowl."
Bring back the cowl. So I'm sorry, but that was clearly a winner, and maybe I'll bring it back at some point in the future. But Dave and Joni, I will bring you in. We're doing a sort of a vague retrospective of the year. What we're looking at the moment is the visuals. What, in terms of all the things you've seen, forget what all of these award season things is about. In terms of just what you've seen, the look of something, maybe the visual effects, something like what's really stood out for you as a TV show this year?
Ooh, just your last word there on as a TV show. I was actually just the first thing that came to my mind was unfortunately a film, which was The Batman.
You'd go for a film then? Why not? The Batman.
Yeah, I think
Batman.
I really loved just the way it was filmed. I thought the cinematography was incredible on that. It was just so dark and moody and with like an orange tint the whole way through. But I don't know. I just thought it was incredible. That's the first thing that jumped to my mind.
So good. Well, we just came back from seeing Avatar 2.
That's true.
Like a couple of days ago, and that's whatever you can say about the story, the actual visuals in that are outstanding. So yeah. As far as TV shows go, probably, I'm sure you've probably talked about the main ones: Rings of Power, Game of Thrones, and Andor. I really loved. I loved Andor so much, and the visuals in that were incredible as well. Just a lot of scope, like a lot of I don't know, was it like really good set designs, but then green screens in the background to make.
It was one of the best Star Wars, like to give you the feeling of the world of Star Wars. I thought Andor was really good.
Really, really good.
I haven't seen
talked about all of those already.
No, well, certainly not Batman, but we've had name checks for the Dragons of House of the Dragon, and also some of the Rings of Power stuff, just like the visuals of Khazad-dûm and things like that. And yeah, Helen was giving a little bit of Andor love.
I will say that for Rings of Power, definitely love it or hate it. One of the strongest things that it had to it was the visuals, of course, and some of the, as you said, Khazad-dûm, yes, but also some of the sweeping landscape shots as well. Some of the scenes when the Númenóreans were training in the boats, and there was an overhead shot a couple of times where they were dragging their boats into shore, and they were just stunning. And from watching behind the scenes, all the cast were saying that the days that they were shooting on those black sands were just, the days were flying by so quickly because there was such beautiful and breathtaking scenery.
Excellent. Just a comment in the chat that I have to pick up on. Carl Karsnark saying Balrogs do have wings, and Robert can prove it. I cannot prove that Balrogs have wings because Balrogs do not have wings, or at least if they do, then they always forget to use them. But guys,
Hello?
as you're here,
What are we really doing this? This is not like you have the last word on this.
No, that's it. Let's move on.
So what is the quote in the book?
We just posted that like 20 minutes ago, that video.
Well, we'll get to Mark as he's the House of the Dragon expert rather than the Tolkien expert. To introduce you to this subject, which rages amongst Tolkien fans to this day. Do Balrogs have wings?
Well, they did in the movie, right? Yeah.
In the movie, yes, but that was a creative decision made by the filmmakers to give them wings. But in the books, it is not 100% clear whether they do. And obviously, you have to ask the question: if the Balrog had wings, why on earth did it fall down that big chasm?
Look. Penguins have wings. We're going back there. And this is the thing. Penguins have wings. Can they fly? No.
Yes.
But they do this with their wings, to intimidate, like other animals as well. So, it's like penguin wings.
So
and Cassie did an amazing painting for this, right? We know this, Robert. We know this.
We do. And so canon is that Balrogs have penguin wings that they use to intimidate and frighten everyone else.
Do we all agree that Balrogs look way cooler and way more badass with wings?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, then
that doesn't mean that they have them.
Imagine
but
a penguin
they do.
without wings.
Yeah.
That would be so weird.
Penguins don't have wings.
I don't believe they have wings, no.
What's the penguin cannon? I'm not sure.
I don't know. What is it, an emperor penguin, or who knows?
We'll have to see.
But you did. The reason this comes up, I suspect, is that you did a podcast, I don't know, a day or two ago, something like that, in which you covered this thorny issue of whether Balrogs, which every content creator who's a Tolkien fan at some point covers, whether Balrogs have wings. So I don't want to get into it in too much detail, but I just need to know what's the highlight in your view, and then we'll move on. I promise. In your view, do Balrogs have wings?
Well, I see someone just shared our video in the chat that we just uploaded literally 20 minutes ago, which was we do our podcasts, which are normally an hour and 10 minutes, and then we do a couple of just short clips from it, and we put them up on YouTube. So that someone just put that in the chat. But our consensus was at the end that Balrogs do not have wings.
What?
Excellent.
What?
Do you remember?
What?
I know.
I have to
agree to disagree.
unfriends forever. I pull a Galadriel
Don't
here.
do it.
So what is the quote in the books? Like, is it like a left up for
Okay,
interpretation?
if we're going this way, I will start you on another conversation, and then I will bring everybody back to the hot conversation of Balrogs and wings, because I can bring up the quote in just a minute or so. But let's go to talk about music in terms of the year. What music on like TV shows or films? We can add in films as well. What music really worked for you? I mean, I will name check The Rings of Power. I think that was the visuals and the music were the two things that really worked for me there. But I don't know, was there anything else that the music really blew you away? Helen, we'll start with you, then we'll sort of move around.
You just see my thinking face. I'm just trying, because I don't want to say yes. Rings of Power, obviously. Bear is epic, and I think you guys met him, right? I know Robert met him a few times. Did you guys met him as well?
We met
at the
Bear,
premiere.
Just briefly.
Yeah, just briefly. We didn't get to chat to him for as long as Robert did, but
Got to touch his
yeah.
touch his hand, which was nice.
You could run our fingers through his hair.
I thought you were about to say something else.
What?
Great.
I do,
And we saw him, like, probably the highlight of the premiere was his live performance with the orchestra. That was incredible. They did a little medley of all of the themes from the Rings of Power series, so that was incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd agree.
Yeah, but I'm sorry, I don't. Besides that, there was nothing that really stuck with me. Not that I want to say anything was bad, like Star Wars. Nah, I don't know. What else was out there actually? Oh, I very often like the Witcher music, but Witcher doesn't count, right? That was last year. That wasn't this year.
And Bear McCreary has also done the music for The Witcher Blood Origin coming out in December, so he's covering that one too.
I'm blank.
When was
Anyone else got any thoughts on the music?
When,
or we can
when
go
was Boba
back
Fett?
to.
Oh yeah.
Boba Fett's music, was that this year?
No, last year as well.
Was that last year as well?
Oh yeah, must be.
Oh, the years are...
I'd have to say, I know we already used it for the visuals, but Batman. The
What
music
year
of
is
that,
it
I
even?
think it was
I don't know.
Michael Giacchino for that was incredible. The theme was so good.
Yeah,
And I just
Something
thought
in the way. Something
Yeah,
that
even
was a
from
good.
the
Yeah.
trailer.
Yeah, that trailer was
I
great.
didn't like the movie that much, and I'm a massive Batman fan. My cat's named Batman. Yes, I didn't like it that much. I'm not trying to seem like a contrarian. I really didn't like. It was a good movie. I
think it divided opinion between a lot of people. It was kind of you loved it or you hated it. Or
I
well,
like
you loved
Robert
it, or-
Pattinson, but the movie itself was like a murder thriller. Very little Batman.
It's kind of like old detective Batman. In it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which I kind of liked. You see, I heard that way before they were releasing it, and I was all for it. I was like, yeah, we've had so much action Batman especially in the Zack Snyderverse. It was probably a bit too much in the face.
Yeah.
So I was willing for this kind of dark, depressed, emo Batman who stays up all night and face paints and everything. I like that.
See,
like
I
the
was
way he has to wear
excited.
glasses during the daytime because he can't see during the daytime because he's up at night all the time. That was cool.
Yeah.
Things like that.
I liked it for going into it the same reasons that y'all did. He in canon, puts paint under his eyes to help hide his face, and this was the first movie they did that. So I was like, this is going to be amazing. I didn't like, I mean, I watched Twilight, you know, but I didn't like the acting from him from that, but I seen there was this really confusing movie, you know what I'm talking about, where everything went backwards, and then that I saw his acting in, and I was like, holy crap, this dude can act. Like, he was one of the stars of that movie. So, maybe the next one will be, you know, different.
Well, I'm going to briefly interrupt the discussion of our pats to come back to the burning issue of, and I promise we will not turn this into a Balrog Wings stream, but because I was asked, I've just drawn up the passage here where Tolkien describes the Balrog, and he says the Balrog reached the bridge. Gandalf's enemy halted again, facing him, and the shadow about it reached out like two vast wings. So the first mention is clearly the shadow reaching out like two vast wings. And then, next page, it says, its wings were spread from wall to wall. And the big discussion amongst Tolkien fans is this still just saying its wings as in the shadows that were like wings were spread from wall to wall, or were these actual wings that were spread from wall to wall? So that's the issue. And then you can go back into the Silmarillion and you can look at all of the Balrogs that were back there, and at least two and probably more of them died by falling off of mountains, which is part of my general take, is that if they did have wings, they tended not to use them. So anyway, we're not going to get into it.
Yeah, but they climbed the walls of Gondolin. So, you know, not climbed. They flew up there because you couldn't actually really climb those walls. So, you know, I think they even carried
They rode on the backs
people
of
or
dragons.
whatever.
They rode on the backs
So-
of dragons rather than the other way. So,
So Robert, you think they don't have wings, and Helen, you think they do?
Yeah,
Right,
because
so-
it's
so-
cooler with wings.
Well,
I
it sounds
100% agree.
it sounds like to me that no one ever got to ask Tolkien. I'm assuming, or his son has asked him if Balrigs have. Okay, so then
Balrogs.
I say they do,
You
because
say they do.
yes.
Sure,
Here's the
even out
thing.
the score.
He said the second quote literally wings. So and then like you said,
Mark, it's
they-
been great having you on.
He always does that to me. I think he once blanked me out when I said it. Like,
So then, like, how do you get to a mountain? How do you get to the top of a mountain? Did they walk up there? They probably flew up there. The reason why they
Flew on
fell
the back
off
of
is
dragons. We've been through this, Mark. This is not this is not a big thing. And they're good. When Tolkien says fly, he doesn't always mean fly. Fly, you fools, does not mean actually fly. He just means go quickly.
Why
I
didn't they
don't-
just take a Balrog to Mount Doom? That's what I want to know.
because they just killed it. That's
because
why.
they don't have wings. There you go. So that proves that Balrogs don't have wings.
Also, I would say that in the movie, when we see the Balrog falling down into that chasm, that's not an argument for why the wings work or did not work. Because when you see this giant beast falling down into this tiny little crack, there's definitely no space for his wings to actually be able to open up and spread as well. So if someone says, "Oh, why did he fall down?" or "Why didn't he fly in there?" I think it would have been impossible for him if he had wings to actually be able to open them in that little tiny space. So my thinking of him not having wings is all about the language used in that quote that Robert just read.
I mean, I can contradict myself now because there was another one in the Silmarillion, you know, where he fights with Glorfindel, and I don't think that was such a tiny thing he fell through. But, you know, I'm not...
So
I
that's
don't
now
want to-
two Balrogs that die by falling.
Yeah.
Because penguin wings, again.
It's not a normal way for creatures with wings to die. Let's just think about that.
Well,
That wouldn't
actually,
die by falling.
that's the only way they will die. Because if they're flying, they gotta fall. So maybe the fact that all of the mentions of the Balrogs dying happen to be them falling is because they were in flight when it happened. So maybe he went to jump off them. I don't know Tolkien at all. He went to jump off the mountain, and he fell because his wings, for some reason, didn't work that good. Like it the way that you say that in the
Vertically.
context kind of makes sense, right? If they're always falling, you know what I mean? Like, would it be because they're flying? You know, where they jump right before they die or something? I don't know.
Okay, I'm going to backpedal. They do have wings.
No! It's not,
Penguin wings.
this is not helpful. Lucian in the chat saying, I think I'm a closeted Balrog wing denier. Excellent.
Where you picked out the one comment, like...
No. Brothers
Robert,
Quinn saying
can
maybe
you
the
do a poll?
Balrogs rode upon Morgoth corrupted reindeers, which is excellent.
Have you learned how to do a poll? Do it.
Have I learned what?
Ask a poll.
A poll? I've no. You know what I'm like with technology. The idea of doing a poll, I've literally no idea how to do
Maybe
a poll.
everyone in the chat can give a thumbs up or a thumbs down.
And
Okay, let's
Helen
do
can count them.
this. So
I'm not counting.
Either type wings or no wings in the chat, and I will quickly read out. Well, I will say who's winning,
Twitter
but this
poll.
gives us a chance to move on, if only for a very brief second. Guys, Dave and Johnny, you weren't around when we were talking about best acting this year that you've seen. We had a lot of love for Paddy Considine in House of the Dragon, who's playing King Viserys. Is there any other specific acting that you've seen this year that you just think is worth sort of just tipping your hat to?
Dave, Johnny. It was specifically in those two shows, Rings of Power.
No, any show, anything
Anything.
you've seen this year. I mean, what my sort of general take on it is all of these, when you get these lists at the end of every year, when you get the Emmys and the Golden Globe, whatever it is, half of the things you've not seen. So it's actually, honestly, you can't really say who is the best. But what you can say is, out of everything you've seen, what was the best acting?
I enjoyed Michael Keaton's performance in Dope Sick.
Oh,
Did anybody see that?
is that this year?
That's from this year, yeah.
Okay.
Did anybody,
I haven't even
any of
seen
you
it.
guys seen Dope Sick? No?
No.
With Michael Keaton? No?
I pretty much only watch House of the Dragon. I'm not lying. I pretty much only watch, and then Game of Thrones, and then I'm all about audiobooks. And like, once I finish the audiobook, I gotta buy the physical copy so I can be like, yeah, I read this. I partially did, right? But yeah, there hasn't been a lot of great. That sounds good. I like Michael Keaton.
It is a good series. If any, it's a mini series. Well, it's a short. I think it's like an 8-episode, just once off. But it's about just addiction to opiate drugs and that whole crisis. But Michael Keaton does a fantastic job in that. So as an acting performance, I would say check that one out. That's good.
I think everyone in House of the Dragon was amazing. Like, a lot of them I'd never heard of before, like Millie Alcock. I thought she was brilliant. Even the guy that plays Sir Kristen, I thought
Fabian
like,
Frankel.
Yeah, I thought
Sorry.
he was kind of like, you know, he was one-dimensional in the beginning, but just the way he changed and his performance was brilliant as it went on.
He was one-dimensional in his physical appearance throughout the entire series.
He never changed.
Those
which was very
memes
strange.
are everything when you don't see him age, and you know everybody else gets another actor. And
They age
they're-
so much that they
Poor
changed.
Viserys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Paddy Considine was amazing. Actually, I'll give a shout out to an Irish actress who was in Andor. I don't remember her name, so I can't really shout her out. But what's her name? The girl that plays. What's the one actress in Star Wars Andor?
The mechanic.
Saoirse Ronan.
No,
Did I
not
say
the-
her name right?
Mon Mothma?
I
like
think
her.
it was
Yeah, what'd you say?
Mon
Mon
Mothma.
Mothma. Yeah,
Mothma?
whoever plays Mon Mothma. I
Oh.
thought she
Well
was.
done.
I thought she was brilliant. She barely was
Genevieve
in.
O'Reilly, I think her name
Yeah,
is.
well done. Okay, yeah, I thought she was incredible. Like, she didn't have that much screen time, and I've heard her accent in real life, and it sounds nothing like the real high-end posh accent that she puts on in the show, which I just thought she was incredible, and I'm really looking forward to seeing more of her in season 2. I thought we would get way more of her in season 1, but yeah, I thought all her scenes were captivating. Loved it.
Yeah, she was good.
Good stuff.
Has any one of you seen Vikings Valhalla, or am I the only? Because I really love that. Because we were talking about shows, and I kept thinking of what did it run this year or was it last year? I don't remember. I think this year.
Yeah, well, Viking. Yeah, I think the other Viking show came out last year.
Well, that's been out for a long time, but yeah, Valhalla was out. I think it was the beginning of this year.
Yeah,
think so.
and
I
that was
downloaded-
so because I didn't enjoy the regular Vikings. I stopped after season 2, I think, and I really enjoy the Valhalla one. So for anyone in the chat or who is watching later, if you feel like me, Valhalla is really it's standalone. You don't have to watch the other one, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I saw that as well. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
quite gripping. I think I
Yeah.
binged
Yeah.
it in maybe 2 or 3 sittings.
Yeah.
Nice.
As
Well,
far as sorry, go ahead.
No, you go on, Mark, and then I've got an important wings/no wings.
Oh my
update.
god!
But you can speak first.
So the Vikings on that path, the Northmen, that came out. That was amazing.
Oh,
that was
right,
like
yeah.
my
So
favorite
good.
movie in the past 5 years. That movie was amazing. I love that
So
movie.
good.
Was that the
Well,
movie that had that single shot of the? Was that movie about Vikings? And
Yeah,
No?
it's the dude from. I mean, I don't know enough
Blood.
about Viking culture, and all of you guys are from Europe, so I'm going to tread carefully. But,
Get my accent.
yeah, I think it is. I think it is. Yeah, it's about Vikings, Viking culture at least. Like basically, he's a kid. His village is attacked, and he's forced to run away and then come back. And when he comes back, he's got his own Viking.
Yeah.
It's kind of about that. I don't want to spoil it for anybody who hasn't seen it, but it's really good.
It's a bit
Well,
like
I-
The Last Kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
The Last Kingdom is great.
Great.
I haven't seen The Northman, but I heard excellent things about it. I will add it to my list of things to watch. I
was that
won't
the movie
watch
with a
everything.
naked fight. There's some Viking movie that has a nude
Let's,
fight.
let's ask the important questions here, shall we?
Yeah, because I watched that.
The jelly wrestling? Is
Yeah,
that
no, but it's one of these fights where it's like completely nude, and like obviously their areas are covered by shields and axes, but anytime you can't cover it, there's just CGI smoke,
Oh,
which
really?
just like covers everything, and it's very convenient.
Willem Dafoe is in it, so he might show dong. I think when they enter a trance, like so they do like a shamanic mushroom Viking ritual, and they enter a trance and like they kind of combine souls. I guess is the point of that. There might be some naked, action.
Cool. I'll add it to the list.
Okay. So added to the list because of all of those excellent reasons. Let's just remind people this is a charity live stream, and it is in aid of Médecins Sans Frontières, Doctors Without Borders, they just take medical staff into war zones, areas where disease is endemic, where there is no medical support otherwise, and help the people who in this world need help the most in the most direct way possible. So this is a hugely important cause. It's always needed, tragically, but if you're just watching your TV and seeing people's homes in, say, Ukraine or Yemen or somewhere like that bombed, the people who are going to help them out are people from Doctors Without Borders as much as often as not. And if you can possibly spare some money to help out with that, just real first aid for the people who desperately need it, then I would love that. If you have enjoyed what our ramblings today, or if you've enjoyed my shows during the year, then I would love you to use this as a way of showing your appreciation. There is a link if you're watching live or even later somewhere on your screen, or if you go down into the description, there is a link to their website if you can't, for whatever reason, donate through YouTube. YouTube take nothing from this, by the way. It's 100% goes straight to the charity. So thank you very much for that. I did say, and we're not going to have any come back on this, I did say I would pick up on the important issue of Balrog wings, and we will very quickly go through without comment. I will go wings, no wings, wings, no wings, no wings, wings, but only because of the Red Bull. Wings, no wings, no wings, wings. If Robert says no wings, I trust him. Wings, no wings, no wings, wings. So there you have it. A clear view from the chat is that everybody understands that Balrogs do not have wings. Moving on. Let's go to. Actually, I'll go for a question randomly from one of my patrons. Let's go to. Where should we go to? A question from. Okay, actually, Mark, as you're here, and I know you're like me, you listen to A Song of Ice and Fire as much as you read it. This is Diego Godoy saying, "Hola, Robert. Hola. If I recall correctly, you are now listening to the audiobook of A Clash of Kings. I'm not sure how far along you are in the book, but so far, what has been the most surprising thing you've noticed on this reread?" Which I think is a really fascinating question, because when you listen to somebody reading a book, it is actually a very different experience to just reading it on a page. And so there have definitely been some things that have...
I disagree with you.
You disagree with me?
Just slightly, but I just...
I will finish my thing and then feel free to absolutely flame my opinions. For me, it allows an emphasis on things that you perhaps have not read when you were personally reading it. And this has allowed the highlighting of certain things. Like I can remember when I was reading book 1, how George R. R. Martin was emphasizing how Catelyn Stark was one of the cleverest characters in the whole cast of A Song of Ice and Fire, in a way that didn't really come across, I think, on the show. In terms of A Clash of Kings, yes, I'm about halfway through that. I'm listening through quite slowly. One thing which has really struck me has been how Dany, at this stage, really still buys into the hype about the Targaryen rule, about how the people, when her Aerys II, the Mad King, would be walking the streets of King's Landing and the people would smile, is what she thought. And she thought of all of her siblings, all of her family as being noble and the people loving the Targaryens. I had always known that, yeah, she believed this, but the extent to which this frames her view and understanding of the world, it's so much stronger for me when I was listening through to it. But Mark, first of all, tell me why I'm wrong about the listening experience. But then after that, is there anything on your most recent listen through that has struck you?
Okay, so I not necessarily disagree, but I feel like when you look at the science, I've read a bunch of articles on this, because I always say, I've read A Song of Ice and Fire 7 times. I'm on my 7th reread right now. People in the comments get mad because they're like, oh, you mean the audiobooks? You post pictures of where you're at in the audiobooks all the time. I did some research. It lights up the same part of your brain, right? And normally, if a normal narrator is reading to you, for sure, it's like a different experience. I know that personally with the Kingkiller Chronicle. I first found it, like, literally as a download on, I was reading it on my phone. And then when I found the audiobook on YouTube by Nick Podell, I was like, whoa, this is different, right? I didn't really like it at first. I felt like I could blow through a chapter right away. That's all I was saying. But after you...
I was teasing you a bit. It is still reading the book. I would agree with you completely on that.
But as far as different things that I noticed, so right now, I'm starting A Storm of Swords. I would say, going back to Clash of Kings, the siege that Arya has when she's on the shore of the God's Eye, when they're laying siege to a castle, right? She's trapped in there, and then she has to sort of fight them off, and she starts killing people, and she's yelling for Winterfell. First time I read that, I was like, okay, or listened to it, was like, this is amazing. I totally am even more mad at Dan and Dave for not including something as awesome as this on the TV show, right? But then now, after a few more re-listens or rereads, I realized it would be a little bit crazy to see someone, like a 9-year-old little girl, killing grown men in full-on armor and then yelling for Winterfell. So that's kind of something that I noticed this, because and then also now when I get to, sometimes I'll jump ahead and read some Victorian stuff if the topic of my video is involving some Greyjoy stuff. Ever since you said George thinks Victarion's an idiot, that's changed my perspective on him. And yeah, he's pretty stupid. He's really stupid. At first I was like, dude, this is the most logical Ironborn. He got Theon, all he wants to do is have sex, and he thinks he's so bad, but he's never done anything. But this dude Victarion is actually doing stuff. He's got an iron fleet. It's not great. He's killing people and taking their ships and adding them to his bulk, right? But one of the coolest Greyjoys, and I was like, he's definitely a smart dude. But then when you said that, right, I was like, okay, well, George is the person who wrote this book, so obviously if he thinks his character's stupid, that added a new perspective on. So that's kind of, in
Is that
relation.
canon? Is that canon?
That he's
the
stupid?
exact quote is that George R. R. Martin says that Victarion is thick as a stump. That's what
But
he said.
so is Dunk. To be fair, Dunk thinks of himself
Castle
as
Wall.
stupid. Yes.
Yeah.
So even dumber, right? Because the stump would be like, I don't know.
Absolutely. Dave and Johnny, are you readers of A Song of Ice and Fire? I know you've watched House of the Dragon. Are you book readers of A Song of Ice and Fire as well, or just
Not yet.
watch the show?
No, I intended to listen to them on audiobook over the Christmas, but just haven't had a chance being busy. I thought like I would never get the chance to actually read the books themselves, so I thought audio would be the way to go. But yeah, just still haven't had the chance, but I really, really want to, because I know how interesting the way that they're written, isn't it? All like chapter by chapter in the perspective of different characters.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's a really cool way to write a book when you don't really know what's the real truth and what's a story, what's a rumor. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting into them at some point. But they sound very complicated. But I'm all here for it.
Yeah, my reading, like Mark, I'm like Mark, but the opposite way in terms of that. I only read Tolkien, really, basically. I'm just because there's just so much to get through, and once you get through it, you're like, well, now I need to go back and read that other book that I read 2 years ago because I can't remember what happened there. So yeah, it's difficult, but I would like to get through them, and maybe audiobooks is the way to go. Where, yeah,
I find it hard to retain information though with audiobooks. Like I'll be sitting in traffic for an hour, and that's when I can listen to something. But like if I'm flying around these country roads in Ireland or doing something like that, yeah, it's hard to remember what I just.
Is that
listened to
flying
for
like
the
a
last
Balrog flies?
Yeah, exactly.
his car has
Literally
wings.
flying around. Car drinks Red Bull.
I thought you guys were going to say that you hadn't gotten into the audiobooks because of Roy's accent. Because I've seen people say that, and I can't believe people think that. But I'm an American, so I'm like, Roy won an award for doing the most characters, and I'm like defending a point that you guys didn't even make. I just was
So this is the guy that does the Game of Thrones.
This is
books,
Roy
it?
Dotrice, who
Yes.
does the audiobooks for A Song of Ice and Fire, who tragically now he's died. So the big issue is when The Winds of Winter comes out, who is going to take over? Because
Simon Vance.
this is a huge task, because it is, I think it is the Guinness World Record for the most different characters in a single audiobook when you get into A Song of Ice and Fire. And he does do a different voice for all of them. And some of them are interesting, and some of his pronunciations are interesting. But once you get into it, I personally love it. But
Yes,
yeah,
it's the best thing ever, man. Do you know the voice he does for me Sunday in the beginning? Oh, Daenerys, hello to meet you. It comes out of nowhere. It really does come out because he's doing this like gruff, and like because of his accents are so amazing. I've learned that England, right? It takes 8 hours to drive across, if I'm not mistaken, from the most southern point to the most northern point. But there's all these different accents, and over here, if we had that many accents in the state, it would be nuts. So when he does these accents, it makes sense. So now I can point out, okay, this person's from the north. I don't know where, but I just know that's a northern accent. That's a Midland accent. No, that's a southern. Like this person's from London because of him. So.
Nice.
I love Harry Lloyd. Could he do that, or is he not good enough to do all the different characters? Because what he did was different.
He did
I personally am a huge
Night of the
fan
Seven
of Harry
Kingdoms.
Lloyd. He, for those who don't know, he played Viserys in season 1 of Game of Thrones. So that's who he is. But he's an excellent actor in and of his own right. He's done several other things as well, and he narrated Dunk and Egg. And just Dunk and Egg on its own, I would say, I've said this several times before, but I think that is the best matchup of a narrator to a story that I've ever heard. I think he completely captures the mood of Dunk and Egg, and he can obviously do the voices for like posh Targaryens very well, but I think he also does some of the other voices. Where he would be personally my pick for doing it.
And Jorah, what's his name? I don't know his actual name.
Jorah Mormont.
He did.
Ian Glenn,
Ian Glenn.
Yeah,
Yes.
he did the Dance of the Dragon. When it was the short stories, before the book came out, he narrated that, and I really enjoyed that as well.
He's got a cool voice.
He does, yeah. Very cool.
I'd say Simon Vance. He does all the Dune books, and he did Fire and Blood. I didn't think it was possible, but
He did
does.
Fire and Blood. I
Yes.
just wanted to ask who was that. Ah, okay, good.
Yes,
Yeah,
and
I enjoyed that.
and he does the way he does with. So in the first Dune book, they had the version I bought was like it had a couple of different voice actors doing different ones, but he was the most consistent one throughout it. And then in Dune Messiah and Children of Dune, and then God Emperor of Dune, he does pretty much all of them. He can actually inflect his voice. Like that's the thing. It's the most characters ever, but he can inflect his voice enough, and I've heard him do enough different where I honestly have to look it up and see who is this right now. So he can change his voice subtly enough to do that. He's got like a really good Bene Gesserit voice that he does for Jessica that could be used for most of the female POVs, and then also for Tyrion the most. Right? He does a voice. He did a voice for Bajuz in Dune Messiah, who's the guy that leads, he's a Laxu agent that leads Paul to where the atom bomb strikes, or what do they call it, Stone Burner, which is really cool for a sci-fi to use a fantasy name like that, and Paul gets his eyes burned out. I'm telling the end of what's going to happen in Dune, but
Yeah, spoiler alert.
so yeah, Bajuz is there. In that the voice that he does for Bajuz, he only uses it that one time. He might use it in Fire and Blood, I'm not sure, but just recently, I know I heard him use it for that. So that would be a really good Tyrion voice. I think Simon Vance would be perfect.
We can't talk about voice acting without giving a shout out to Andy Serkis as well, I suppose.
Oh, true.
He's got to be one of the OGs of
He's done
voice acting.
the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
I think.
he-
Oh, Lord of the Rings, yeah.
Yeah, you guys don't want to hear my opinion on his audiobook for Lord of the Rings? I couldn't get. He's the reason.
You didn't like it?
I
You're not
thought
going
I
to talk down
would.
about Andy Serkis, sure.
No, I'm not talking down about Andy Serkis, but it's a bit much because the version, I got a dramatized version and I got through it easily. The people that were literally acting, the dramatized version, it's like 5 hours and it's got like a bunch of different voice act, but it's really cool. It's got music with it and all that stuff. Maybe it's me. And I said the same thing about Dune because when I first started Dune, like when the movie came out, audiobook, I was like, this is going to be rough. This is hard because everything I'm comparing to Roy Dotrice. And then I've gotten through it now. So maybe that's the thing with Andy Serkis. So I'll retract that statement. I'll give it another try. I only got like halfway through the first, but I figured I can do most of the voices he's doing.
Right.
And because of that, I feel like it was just, it's crazy. It's
Maybe
like,
you're talented too.
we're going down to the bar to make sure we get lots of bit, and then it'll switch. But it'll ultimately sound the same. It's, I don't know. And like I said, I'm not talking.
Let's start the campaign. Sir Hunt's to be narrating A Song of Ice and Fire. I think this is the way to go.
That would be hard.
In the Tyrion, because you mentioned Tyrion, for those who haven't listened to it, Tyrion certainly starts. Roy Dotrice starts off Tyrion. For anyone who's not heard the audiobooks, but obviously has watched the TV show, with a strong Welsh accent. So this is where it's an acquired taste. But I think when you do acquire it, then you do really quite enjoy it. Let's just go to when we're doing our retrospective of the year. Best episode of anything this year. Now, we sort of touched on this a little bit earlier. A lot of us enjoyed episode 8 of House of the Dragon, the one with Viserys when he's like struggling up to the throne, and that was wonderful. And I think it was episode 8 of Andor as well, where you had the jailbreak. But Dave and Johnny, we'll start with you. Have there been any particular episodes of anything that you've seen this year, maybe those or other ones that you would just want to give a little nod to?
I think the actual season finale of House of the Dragon really, really sealed how much I love the show, because I think the whole show started off as a little bit of a slow burner, and myself and Johnny had different opinions about the whole time jumps and the changing of actors and actresses, and by the tail end of the show it really started to pick up. But I think the finale it's the finale that has the big giant dragon attack, right?
Yeah.
Forgive me that I forget all the names of all the characters already.
Big giant dragon attack works. That's fine.
Yeah, that was insane. It brought me right back to the good seasons of Game of Thrones, and just that feeling of, oh my god, like what's going to happen? My heart was in my mouth, and then just seeing that last shot of Rhaenyra turning and looking at the camera, and I was like, oh god, I just love the show and I really want to see more. straight away, but it's probably going to be another 2 years. And yeah, that episode for me, I remember episode 8 being brilliant as well, but the finale was incredible. It was a real proper finale.
Yeah, no, I'd have to agree with exactly what David just said. I don't know if this year was a very, very strong year for other series in general, because I'm just trying to think now of other series that even jump out. Miss Marvel.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
I didn't see that. There's a few
She-Hulk.
I didn't see She-Hulk.
Classics. What are you talking about? This is an amazing year.
Moon Knight, was that what it was called? Or Night Moon? I can't remember. I think I the same as what you were saying there about how House of the Dragon, the first few episodes in, I was really kind of getting into the characters, and then suddenly there'd be a time jump and it'd throw me off, and I didn't see the point of it really halfway through the season. I was thinking, for example, I really enjoyed the younger actors that played just the I can't remember, is it Millie Hancock?
Millie Alcock. Yeah.
Alcock and whatever. I can't remember. Yeah, Mark is laughing because he knows it very well, I'm sure. But
no, it's funny.
Thought that they played
Hancock. That was great.
I like Irish people's sense of humor. I like European people in general, but I really like Irish people's sense of humor, and if you see me smiling randomly, it's thank you. If you see me smiling randomly, it's because and Robert can attest to this. I'm a pretty awkward dude. Like, even when I'm drunk, like, I'm pretty awkward. So, but
we're drunk. Right
he
now.
is awkward. You don't want to meet him when he's drunk. No, as a joke, he's a fine man.
I couldn't believe how tall Robert is. Robert's like 6'6". Really?
Oh my
he really
God.
He's tall as hell. I was like, holy.
Oh God.
What's up, dude?
I'm not as tall as that. I'm 6'1", and this is just hard facts. But Helen,
And he wears platforms.
okay. For those, Dave and Johnny missed that. The joke there was when, I don't even know when this was, 3-4 years ago, Con of Thrones, which is it's exactly what you think it is. I went there and everybody said, "Oh, you're taller than I was expecting," and I then got quite uncertain about was my camera angle wrong? Do I look really short on screen or something? And I didn't.
Do you want me to tell you what it is? Would you like to know?
Please do, Mark.
So, I'll try to put this the most American way without sounding like we're friends. I could say this, right? So when you,
I don't know what you're going to say, but go on.
Right. So when there are certain things that are put into American media that demasculinate British males, right?
Okay.
So for real, that's what it is. Like, you can look at any TV show, still now to this day, they'll say that stuff. So if you've never actually met someone who's British, two things. I've met a couple people. I didn't meet him, but Gendry, he was at the Con of Thrones, asked me for a lighter to light a cigarette. I was like, oh, he's way smaller than I thought he was, right? The impression that I got in my head is that he's a blacksmith. So with you, I think, okay, it probably does have to do playing with your camera angle. You know what I mean? Like, the way you had your camera initially. But now that I'm thinking about that, you said that. But no, it probably, like, in America, tall guys are like, yeah, you're manly, big manly dude. So, like, relating back to you know what I mean? So that's probably what it is. I can't speak for everybody else, but personally, not to say that you're, you see why I started it the way I did? And I was like, I'm going to preface
you're
this.
so strong. Let's I think I get the point.
But you're a tall dude, man. You're tall, and you're cool as hell in real life, which you cannot say that about I've never met a lot of people. You know what I mean? But we did live streams, and I met you in real life, and you're cool, so.
It was literally people coming up to us, and we're like, "Oh my, you're so tall!" Some of us looked at each other, and we're like, "I can't hear this again." I had that for a week, and I was like, "He's normal. He's tall."
I think of myself as normal height, or maybe slightly above average. But what really surprised me was the fact that nobody came up to Helen and said, "You're actually a hobbit sized." Which he is in real life.
I'm not. I'm 5'4". What? 165 centimeters. I don't know what that is in your weird measurement.
That's-
160.
That's average enough, I think.
Yeah,
I
I'm
assumed you were
not
elven
that
height.
short.
5'3"?
He's
Is that
so-
5'3"?
I think
160.
5'4".
I think yeah.
I mean, I think.
Anyway,
that's
stop
generous.
this. This
I
is
think you're
mean.
probably that in 4-inch heels would be my guess. But
He literally gave me a shirt saying Hobbit size or something like that once.
anyway, Helen, what is your favorite episode of anything this year?
I just tried to Google what else was out there because I literally forgot. And I found, because we were talking about Star Wars, has anyone besides me seen Tales of the Jedi? And is
No.
anyone
No.
besides me a big Count Dooku fan? And the 3 episodes about Dooku, about his backstory and how he, kind of fell for the dark side, and his relationship with Qui-Gon, because there are 2 novels where this all is mentioned a little bit, not in the details that they showed in Tales of the Jedi, but I love that. And yes, it's animated. I don't know if this counts or this is what you asked for, but I love that. And the 3 episodes, or all 3 Dooku episodes, and they are really short. So anyone who hasn't seen it, it's not, what are they, like 20 minutes max, or 22 minutes or something like that? I think it's I think it's 9 episodes. I'm not sure. I think, and it's really good. Tales of the Jedi. It's animated, but it's really good. I
think I have seen. Is
Yeah.
there one where? Is it the one where the animation style switches each episode?
No, I watched that. That
No.
came out last year. That was.
That one was awesome. If it's
Yeah,
something like that, I'll definitely have to check that out.
What's
Wasn't
that
it-
called?
I
All
want
I
to
know
say
is
Legends,
season
but
2
no, it's not.
is going. I think it was all in Asian style, but season 2
Yeah.
is going to have
Yes.
different countries, and
Yeah.
Ireland are actually going to
Yeah.
have a style in an episode, which I'm really looking forward
That's
to.
why it was so awesome. Like each plot was
Was cool.
unconnected for
Yeah.
the most part, and you're like
Yeah.
it told from non-main character perspective. So it was really cool. And to be
Visions.
honest,
I think Visions.
Yes.
Visions, Star
Yes.
Wars Visions, yeah.
Yeah.
That was it.
I hadn't seen any of Andor yet, so I don't appreciate all the spoilers you guys keep talking
Oh.
about.
Sorry.
I don't want to
would
stop
say
the
Andor,
conversation,
and
but I haven't seen any of Andor yet. I've somehow able to.
When that
This is-
Balrog shows up with the wings, that's
we did get caught up, but I've suddenly I'm jumping in. There's a chance to actually link into a question here. One of my patrons, 444, saying, "What was the biggest surprise for you this year in the world of nerdy TV?" And that would be the thing. I don't know if surprise is probably the wrong word, but Andor, I wasn't expecting it to be as good as it was. I thought that House of the Dragon would be as good as it was, and that absolutely met my expectations. But Andor, I went in not really knowing what to expect, and it did start quite slow, but then it just built up and built up and built up, and it was the Star Wars show I didn't know I needed. But I thought it was absolutely fantastic. I've got one more. I still haven't seen the finale, and that's on my list of things to watch over Christmas. But everything so far has just been getting better and better with that. Has there anything? I don't know, Mark. Is there anything really surprised you this year, being even better than you were expecting it to be?
Probably Black Panther 2 again. I know that's my oddball I keep throwing in there, but that I honestly thought it would be. I thought it would be a lot worse because the main character unfortunately passed away before they even filmed the movie. So the way that Disney handled it, the surprise would be seeing Killmonger. I didn't expect to see him. I didn't watch any of the spoilers or leaks or anything for that movie, so I was shocked to see him in there because he was dead. Well, I mean, obviously, she goes into the trance and then she sees him. But yeah, that probably.
Have you guys spoken a little bit about that movie already? Given your opinion?
I briefly mentioned how good Angela Bassett's acting was because we were talking about
she was
the.
amazing. She was
Yes,
amazing.
I forgot how good.
That
Yeah.
was probably the best part of the movie. I would say that, unfortunately, I don't share your opinion on that movie. I didn't quite enjoy it as much. I thought it was very weak at parts. I thought the story was a bit. It meandered a lot through the middle. I thought the start and the end were very strong.
Well,
And
okay,
Angela
so
Bassett, yeah.
maybe it was my expectations were lower because I was like, this is going to be horrible because Chadwick's not in it. But, so maybe that's what it was. But sorry, go ahead.
No, just that though. I agree with you that Angela Bassett. She stole the show, I think, for me. And I'm not sure the Black Panther's sister, I can't remember the actress's name. I think that she was fantastic as well in it. And all the scenes of them two women together were really, I don't know, heartwarming and really kind of, I don't know, they just felt really good. But then I just thought I didn't really like the villain. I thought he was a bit weak. Again, people that love the comics are going to probably kill me and say, well, you know, he was fantastic.
No, I
He
think-
did perfectly.
Yeah, I think there's some protest there too because they changed the villain up. Like he's not, so he's like a feathered serpent water god or whatever, where he's like supposed to be from Atlantis, right, in the comics. So I think
don't think they had the rights to say that it was actually Atlantis, so they just changed the name of it. But it was basically, by all of the rights, it was Atlantis. It was Atlantis that they changed the name.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I would say for me, House of the Dragon, again, that's probably the main thing that we're talking about here at the moment. And for me, I didn't expect it to be as good as it was. I hadn't really, I wasn't that excited about it coming out, and then it kind of just sort of snuck up, and but episode 1, immediately, I just saw the quality of episode 1, and I thought, wow, this is actually going to forgive season 8 of Game of Thrones almost. So that would be my one for better than expected.
Yeah, we were really psyched for Rings of Power, and obviously
That took over the whole kind of,
they both came out at the same time, which was really frustrating. Even in hindsight, like I would have loved to have something to build up to if the House of the Dragon came out at the start of the year or during the summer.
I think that's for me the reason that it was better than expected, because all of my hype was just about Rings of Power. I was so excited for that. And
I did think the trailers though were quite poor. No, the trailers were fine. They just didn't.
For which House of the Dragon?
House of the Dragon, yeah. I just thought that, I didn't feel anything for it, but once you got into the very first episode, you were set, and I loved it. So I'd agree.
Well, I think on House of the Dragon, I thought the trailers were good, and I have to say they had a huge uphill task because the fandom and the Song of Ice and Fire, Game of Thrones fandom were so deflated after season 8 of Game of Thrones. It was so many people were saying, I'm never going to watch anything again. I'm definitely not going to watch the spin-offs. But then you could just...
Those were the first people.
People like to say that, though.
Yeah.
I know, but you could just sense the shift. And I'd love Mark's view, because he was obviously being a part of this fandom as well. But you could sense, as we got closer to the show and then the first 2 episodes happened, people just starting to shift and say, you know what? I'm actually excited about this. I wasn't expecting to. I was not thinking that was it. I was done, but I'm really enjoying it. And there was an unexpectedness for a lot of people, I think, in terms of how well they did. They just landed it. And they should probably teach a masterclass in how to win a fandom back, because the amount of people who'd gone away and then were drawn back by it simply by just doing nothing wrong, I think is the end. There was nothing in there that I can say was bad or terrible. It was just everything was competent and good. But Mark, is that your take, that over time people because lots of people had hated on it season 8, but people just slowly started to get excited again?
Yeah, I think that just shows you like the response for how, I don't know if you saw the stuff on Reddit, on Twitter, you saw on one of those social media how insane some of the posts would sound. Like, I'm gonna, like, people would post pictures of them throwing their DVDs in the trash. Like, if you feel, I've never in my life, right, I'm about to be Hobbit's special birthday, 33, I'm gonna be an official adult, right?
Nice.
In January, right? But I've never seen a fandom do that. I remember seeing articles like about like X-Men movies when they were coming out when I was 12, because I would always snag magazines just because if it had a cool picture, I'm gonna rip that out and put it on my wall. Like if it's any kind of Marvel or in the early days of that. So like X-Men, the first X-Men movie, or X2 or something. But I had never seen that passionate of a response from anything that wasn't political, and this was a made-up TV show. So I remember in the live stream that I did, right after it went live, I was like, I hate this. I went through so many different emotions, and then I literally, was depressed, for 6 months, and was in denial about it, because of a TV show. So if I felt like that as just being somebody who's just a big enough fan of the show, Robert, you know, all of us, we're all like that. You big enough fan of the show, you want to make a video about it and take a chance and post it to YouTube. Why would you? I don't know. I mean, I agree in the sense that they had a lot to come back from, and they should teach a class on how to do that because the show was so good. There was one part that was scary, and that was in episode 9. Right, when the floor with Melee's in that scene, and that was one of the hard canon breaks. So that is a little bit, what you call it. And then when that happened, I saw Twitter went insane. Twitter like went nuts. Some of the posts that you see people tweeting, you're like, have you? What? Like, because they'll say something where their opinion is of an opinion that just, as a diehard fan like myself, I'm like, I know you haven't read the book enough. You got to understand what they're trying to do here, right? Because there were moments where people were getting mad about the show, but if you understand it enough, y'all know this, you'll understand what they're trying to do, right? So, like, it's not necessarily breaking, but that moment did it, and then I saw that rhetoric come back from season 8, like, in full. So, it did, and they should teach a master class, but also I think they should try to be as canon as possible.
And it was weird because for that moment, I think, was it one of the showrunners or the actress herself? I don't really remember, but somebody said, oh, she just, this is just casualties of war or something like that. There was a really, those comments.
Eve Best, you shouldn't say that. Yeah, and the only reason
was
why...
Was it the actress?
Yeah, the actress who played Rhaenys, yeah. I think
my take on this, just incidentally, is that I think that they are setting this up for spoilers here for what's coming, but you get later on, guys, if you want to put your fingers in your ears, but like the storming of the dragon pit, the people will turn against dragons at some point, and if they're going to build up to that, this actually makes a really good way to start. Is that people were killed by a dragon, and the Targaryens didn't even notice. They were just all there busy, like, flying off and protecting the crown and all of that kind of stuff. They didn't even care at all that there were some normal people who got killed by a dragon bursting up through the floor. And that, I think, is a really... If they do that and build that up, which, incidentally, for those who missed for book readers of Fire and Blood, there was, just in the build-up to that, when everybody was being pushed that way, there was a shepherd who was there, which I think was a nod to an important shepherd who will be appearing a bit later on. But Helen, actually, before I come to Helen, because I just want to ask you a little bit about Fire and Blood, because I know you're a big fan and canonicity connected to Fire and Blood. But just Carl Karsnark in the chat saying Robert is too polite to be tall, which is not a comment I completely understand, but I will take that again as a compliment, Carl. Thank you very much. But Helen, I know you actually prefer Fire and Blood as a book to A Song of Ice and Fire, the main story. How did you feel in terms of adaptation? They did it. How well do you think? Obviously, they have to make some changes, but did you like the way that they shifted things?
Yes, because I think Mark mentioned it in the beginning, or was it you? Sorry. So the thing they added was they gave the Greens a real good reason, right? Or not? I mean, is it a good reason? You can question that, but they gave the whole thing a backstory. It's not just and you kind of. I'm an Otto supporter here, and if you would be in his shoes,
hang on. You're an Otto supporter.
Yeah, you know that.
She likes bad guys.
Don't. I thought you said otter, right? Okay, I'm glad.
No, Otto. We say it very weirdly in German. I pronounce it Otto.
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 That doesn't sound wrong at all.
Sorry, Helen. Do carry on.
I could do my impression of you guys, but I don't. Well, not of you.
A German one,
but
okay.
Of a German and then an Irish one. But I don't want to because it's going to be offensive. Like all of the, all of my for my German ones, it's all like people that are like
Baddies.
So that are portrayed in American media, like for instance Eurotrip, right? So the Germans they run into when they're in Germany.
Over the mute button just in case. Just so you know.
No, I'm not. I'm not going to say anything. I'm just saying
Mark.
So the impression that I would do is from Eurotrip. The Germans they run into when they're on that trip. It's always like somebody angry. Like picture Hell's Kitchen, the guy from Hell's Kitchen, Chef Ramsay, right? But just saying in German. That's how I would do.
Okay.
And that's why I didn't want to do it. And then my Irish one, you didn't want to know. The Irish.
Oh,
I could say that I'm like 3% Irish, which means my mom's probably 10 or 15% Irish. My girlfriend's like 25% Irish, so my kids are probably, decent chunk. I understand. But the German one, I'm not German at all, so I don't feel comfortable enough to say.
That breakdown of how Irish you are was when we just did our episode on Elrond and how Elven he is.
Oh yeah,
that was something I need to ask you guys, Lord of the Ring experts. What are Elrond is half human? That was not mentioned at all in the Lord of the Rings movie.
He's called Elrond half Elven, but,
right?
Basically, what you're called half Elven in Lord of the Rings if you just are part Elven.
Oh.
He's not actually.
He is half Elven. He's like
he's
50.
He's 56.5% Elven or something like that, I believe, if you break it all down. But
because the thing is, this is why his daughter, then had the choice to become human, to live a mortal life. You only can do that if you have human in you.
Well, there we are.
So he is Elrond is he's known as the half elf. He is a representative. This is what literarily Tolkien is doing, I think, with the character of Elrond. Is he is a representative of all of the main groups of elves and all of the three main groups of humans, as well as having a bit of Maya blood in him as well. So he is effectively the representative of the forces of good within Middle Earth. And his brother, if he's half human, blew your mind, Mark. Just wait, he's got a twin brother who was he was also half elven, but then he went on to be.
You know how my brain works, because when they reveal that, I'm gonna be like, what? Because I didn't see that.
Okay,
coming.
but Mark, wait. His mother is a bird, and his father is a star.
Let's not go into this.
Okay, so I know a little bit about that, right? So the guy Eru Iluvatar, right? Yeah. You said elderberry. There's a Roman emperor, Tiberius, maybe? Someone Google checked this. Tiberius was poisoned by elderberries. And his father was Justinian. And the Justinian laws are like pretty hardcore. We still use those to this. Well, we don't still use the laws, but he spent a bunch of time I'm working my way through the book. It's really good. It's called Power and Thrones by Dan Jones. Really good. Working my way through.
Dan Jones is excellent.
He's
I
the
would
man.
highly recommend.
You guys should. If you and him had a podcast, it would be the best thing ever, dude. Because like that, Dan Jones is the man, dude.
I would be honoured. I'm a bit of a castle nerd, and he makes a TV show just about castles. So
yes,
I'm
I've seen it.
A massive fan.
On Netflix.
It's that hot guy.
Yes, it's that hot guy. So welcome to the conversation, Helen.
I took it is he's this dude. So when I first saw him, it was the War of the Roses. It was the documentary I saw it on YouTube. I'm like, if I watch this, I'll know exactly what happens in English history, and all I got to do is listen to this guy. And when you watch a bunch of War of the Roses documentaries, a lot of the hosts sometimes can be a slightly hard to digest, but this dude, he's got tattoos all over him. He's like, yeah, and they had an axe, and they split his head up, and he's not like that British, but you know what I mean. He makes history seem cool. At least that's why.
And hot.
And cool and hot. Could somebody in the chat please confirm for us whether a Roman emperor was indeed murdered by elderberries?
Poisoned.
That would be poisoned by them. That would be. There's always a cleverer person than us in the chat. So if that clever person could reveal themselves, I would hugely appreciate it. Let's go off to actually. While we're talking about canonicity and things like that, Dave and Johnny, I don't think I've had your thoughts yet on the channel about and I'm a bit hesitant to go down this path because it rouses lots of opinions. But Rings of Power. What was your overall take, particularly as sort of Tolkien fans? They did move quite a long way away from Tolkien's story. Do you think they handled that well? This is a Kelly Summers question from Patreon. How do you feel about the blending of known and new stories in the Rings of Power? Kelly's saying that she feels that they did an okay job of balancing the big arcs with new stories that were focused on building characters. What's your take?
I think, especially at the start of the show, there wasn't enough that they had showed that made me feel like they were breaking that much canon. And then obviously we got to that big episode 5, the whole Balrog and the song of the roots of the Thaiglir, I think it's called. And that was obviously crazy to everyone, where the Mithril was supposed to like represent the elves actually being able to survive in Middle Earth and all this. So I think we talked about it on our podcast breakdown that week, and we were kind of saying, no, this has to be a lie, and this has to be just made up, and maybe this is Anatar whispering words into Gil-galad, and we were convinced, yeah. And the fact that it's real, it's canon in the show, we both kind of just put our hands up and just said, look, it's not going to be accurate at all, really, to Tolkien's writings, and let's just enjoy the show, because everyone else was already wasting their breath on like how terrible it is and how Tolkien's rolling in his grave and how, you know, this, that, and the other. Yeah, so I just like I'm generally a positive person, and I don't have the energy for that, so I'm just going to be like, look, it's not an adaptation. I just still want to enjoy this TV show, and I'm still going to enjoy the characters that hopefully will be adapted Silmarillion-ly to how they were in the books. So I don't know, and I still think they haven't touched on the big things, the big events that happen in the Silmarillion. So, you know, there's the forging of the rings, but we'll see what season 2 brings, and there's still time for it to be kind of saved, and for.
I think initially when it first came out, we were so caught up in the excitement of just having weekly Lord of the Rings content coming out. We were just so excited. But like, I mean, looking back on it now with a bit of retrospect, we've got. I will say, of course, there's a lot of things that I didn't agree with and I didn't really like, mainly story-wise, and especially some of those lore changes. But it's definitely not, I'm going to die on this hill saying, okay, I'm going to go completely against it, because there's so many things that I really, really enjoyed from it as well. There's so many characters that I fell in love with. There's, as we already spoke about in this stream, just the beauty of it was something that I've never seen before, really, in terms of just the beauty of something that's shot on television. The score was incredible. There's like and there were
a lot of the non-canonical characters have been great. Like Adar is a fan favorite as well, and I can't really think of any others. But like a lot of them are.
And then, but there were so many parts in the series where I had
that's Joseph Muse. Joseph
Maul.
Okay. He's also a favorite on Game of Thrones. Amazing.
Oh, yeah, he's excellent.
Binging.
Yeah, he's excellent. Yeah.
Binging,
Like one perfect example I could give of a scene that I had really contrasting opinions on myself was where they showed how, like, the creation of Mordor, where watching it I was like, this is stunningly beautiful, watching the dam just erupt, or well, the dam doesn't erupt, the dam kind of imploding, and then the eventual eruption of the volcano. Just visually, I'm saying, it was incredible. When you think about just some random guy called Waldreg sticks a sword into a keyhole and twists it, and that's how Mordor. It's like, I mean, just the story just didn't add up. Like, the visuals are up here and the story was down here. And again, that's not the whole way throughout, but just certain parts of it I felt like that happened. But there were other stories that were non-canon that I also really enjoyed as well. And so conflicting opinions at times, but
still an open book. I want to see.
I'm looking forward to
I said I
2.
wouldn't judge the show until I saw the whole series, but now I'm kind of saying I can't judge it until, I meant the whole season.
Yeah.
But I still have hope, and I'm holding out judgment until season 2. Nah, I can still judge it, but let's see what season 2 brings.
And season 2, for those who want, we've had a sort of update in terms of when it's going to happen. Probably, I think the first half of 2014 is now looking likely. They started filming back in 2024, not 2014. Wow. So they started filming back in September, I think it was, maybe October. That will probably take 10 months or so. And the head of something in Amazon did a series of interviews a couple of days ago, and he said it would be really good to have this out within a year of the last season, but probably it's going to be a smidge over that, which is his way of saying so, not in a year, but less than 2 years. So I think we're looking the first half of that, which hopefully means that there's not going to be a clash this time with House of the Dragon. I would personally hugely appreciate that, because I nearly killed myself trying to cover 2 shows at the same time. But and also, I think the fans would prefer having it so that they can talk about one thing and then move on to talk about another thing, just generally.
I also think that really negatively affected Rings of Power, just how good House of the Dragon was. It made people just compare the 2 shows.
Yeah.
Like week by week, they were like, okay, well, this is clearly terrible because look at the production and the story and especially how the show grew. The House of the Dragon started off a bit slow, but it just builded and got great. And I think Rings of Power, the story probably got weaker. That episode 5 was the one that really shattered the canon, and a lot of people started getting angry after that one.
Nobody was saying House of the Dragon is way better than Kenobi, because
exactly.
But it was just always being built up against Rings of Power, I suppose. But and again, just for us as fans as well, as I said, I didn't really get excited about the House of the Dragon, and that was all because the build up to that, those weeks that it was coming out, was all I was thinking about was Rings of Power. So I would like to have the time to be able to get excited for House of the Dragon, and then separately have that same experience for the second season of Rings of Power. So hopefully they don't clash.
Well, agreed completely. Kolnitsky in chat was just asking about the rights, whether they have the rights for the Silmarillion. The answer is no. They have the rights for The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, and the appendices to the Lord of the Rings, which is, I won't go into all of the history, but it was Tolkien's condensed version of the Silmarillion. When his publishers said no to publishing the Silmarillion, he squashed it all down into a smaller version, which he then included in the appendices. Now, that said, the rights issues for Lord of the Rings for all of Tolkien's works are among the most complicated anywhere in literature, and anyone who tells you they understand exactly who owns the rights to do what is probably lying. I have spoken to some people who you would expect to know who owns the rights to do what, and even they do not have an answer. So lots of people have the rights to do it. We are also expecting in 2024 the War of the Rohirrim, which is being produced by Warner Brothers New Line Cinema, who still have the rights to do that.
A movie?
So we could get lots of
series,
things.
animated series.
Oh, that'd be cool. That'd be really
Animated film, I think,
It's
rather
a
than a
film,
series.
yeah, it's a movie.
Oh,
Yeah.
Really? I thought it's a 3. Oh.
That's the first time I'm hearing of it. You guys are really... I didn't know.
An animated film, which is of a really good story, it has to be said. But it's going to be made by the people, not all of the people, but some of the people who made the Peter Jackson films.
And fun fact regarding that one, I recently tweeted, so one of the showrunners, he's on Twitter, and he was apparently waiting for his plane or whatever, and I follow him on Twitter, and he tweeted, "Ask me anything." So I asked him about, because there's one character, one of the main characters, baddie, his name's Freka, and he's, the antagonist to Hammerhand. I asked him, will we get justice for Freka? Because, very often done landings and some of these races and characters are portrayed, or what we understand is very difficult, right? But Tolkien actually, the thinking of, sorry, oh, it's really hard to speak. Sorry. The idea of Freka, the character, is, again, he's a baddie, yes, but he has a good motive and he has some good points for doing what he's doing in the canon. And I asked him, will we get justice and will we get a good explanation why he's a baddie or why he, spoiler, gets killed? And he tweeted back and he said, yeah, maybe. So I'm really excited about that one, because I like when they portray, when they don't say, oh, these are just the baddies, one-dimensional, but there's always a backstory, right? There's always a reason why a conflict happens, and there are always two sides, right? Was the emperor really evil? Question mark. Yeah, so I really like that. And he tweeted back and he said, yeah, so we definitely get that character in the story, which I'm really excited about.
That's great.
And speaking of Ottos a lot earlier in the stream, Miranda Otto is going to be reprising her role as Eowyn.
She'll be narrating as well.
Yeah, narrating as Eowyn, I suppose. Right?
Yeah.
Well, she's narrating anyway, so. And I think Brian Cox is playing Helen Hammerhand, which will be great.
Not the physician.
No.
Or, he's not a physician, not a...
Physicist.
Physicist, that's the word. Physicist.
Yes. No, the actor Brian Cox, not the physicist Brian Cox.
Yeah, actor Brian Cox.
Yeah, he's great.
Quick update from the chat. Basically, lots of people saying, yes, there are, I think it's Caligula. I think people saying there are lots of rumours about how he might have died. Poisoning was one of them.
Specifically, poisoned mulberries, though.
Mulberries. I thought it was
Tiberius.
Okay,
I'm sorry, elderberries. But to be fair, they're in the same family, and as a gardener, if I seen the two of them next to each other, I'd be like, hey, these probably taste similar, right?
I mean,
your weird point to make.
Getting past my own level of knowledge about berries, it has to be said. But I didn't have you down as an expert on the difference between elderberries and mulberries. But there you go.
The only reason why I know something about... So you guys have a type of pie over there that's really popular around the holidays that has a type of berry. I can't remember the name of the berry, but it's got like a type of berry in it. Mulberry? No, not mulberries, because we have those here. But they're illegal here because they... No, not cranberries. But the reason why they're illegal over here in the States is because they cause this weird type of plant disease. And I was just saying, as a gardener, if I saw them, I'd confuse them. Because, like, anytime I see elderberries or mulberries or whatever, I just bulk them all together. But gooseberries, that's it. Thank you. Gooseberries, right. And I've always wanted to try some because I watch a lot of gardening videos on... I don't even know how I got to talking. This is what happens when you let Mark talk for too long, Robert.
We digressed a little bit onto the difference between gooseberries and other types of berries. I don't know whether our next guest, who is just waiting patiently, is a berry expert, but she definitely is an expert. Welcome, Heidi, Costume CO.
Hi, everyone. Happy holidays. Ho, ho, ho.
I have no idea how many people know Heidi, but I will introduce her for those who do not know. Heidi has a YouTube channel talking about costumes in lots of TV shows, films, and things like that. You can probably explain it better yourself, but she is my go-to expert on everything to do with costumes and has been now for several years. I'm going to be throwing lots of costume-related questions at you in just one moment. But are you just to settle a few arguments? But just do you know about whether or not any Roman emperors were killed by berries?
Not to my knowledge.
No.
I don't know.
Balrog have
It's not just the berries, Robert. They're poisoned. They're poisoning them.
I'm being unfair. But Heidi, as we have you here, we're doing a sort of a retrospective over the year of some things that we've loved in terms of TV and film. And I would love your thoughts. I don't think I asked you during House of the Dragon. I might have asked you a couple of random questions on Twitter or something. But what was your take on the costumes for House of the Dragon and Rings of Power, which are the two main things we're talking about at the moment?
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you so much, Robert, for having me. And I'm coming to you from Canada, and we're about to get a huge snowstorm, just in time for the holidays. So,
wow.
And I want to say hello to Asun. She's in the chat because you guys were having a little conversation earlier about Doctor Who. So, Well, my feelings on House of the Dragon. If anyone follows me on Twitter, they'll know it's kind of split. I sort of have I have my good pile and I have my not so good pile, and I had some conflicts with the whole thing as the show was unfolding. So, as many of you know, it's a whole new design team, whole new directors, showrunners, that kind of thing. So, with that brings a completely different look, and it's supposed to take place many years earlier. So, they went with this costume designer, and it kind of I was sort of at the beginning when I first started seeing pictures, I was a little confused. What are they aiming for here? Are they going for a medieval, Renaissance, Tudor era, Elizabethan? I couldn't quite nail it down what was happening. And as you probably know, also Robert, I was a huge fan of Michelle Clapton, who designed the costumes for Game of Thrones. So now that we're at the end of the season, I've had some time to digest it. I have some things that I love. I love the use of sigils. I love the use of color, and I love all the symbolisms that's there. And then in my not so good pile are things like the techniques, some of the things that maybe people wouldn't notice as much because I'm zoning in and zooming into pictures, but the quality wasn't as good as we've seen in the original show. I thought some of the choices for some of the characters was really weird. And some of the timelines, in terms of showing the aging up of the characters, was sort of, in terms of the storytelling through costume, I thought was a little off the mark. So that's my sort of...
Just to add on what you were saying that looks weird, the hoodies. The hoodie choices at certain times were kind of like Damon's enormous hoodie when he shows up in the Vale and he's like, I'm gonna murder my wife. That was huge.
Well, I don't know if it was Asen who said this, but it had a lot of callbacks to, so I'm not a video game person, but some of the video games, people in the chat will know what I'm talking about. It has sort of those hallmarks. You guys probably know the video game maybe I'm talking about. I'm not a video game nerd. So, but it's kind of going into that weird little, not kind of realism.
Yeah, it does kind of Assassin's Creed. Yeah.
Assassin's Creed. Thank you. That's what some of my viewers were saying. So yeah, we're kind of dabbling a little bit into some, not as grounded feeling. You know what I mean? That was what I loved so much about Game of Thrones. It really felt grounded. And there's this really great historian, and she actually did a breakdown of the whole thing about how, you can go, hey, these materials would have been imported from, Essos, or they would have come from Yeti, and they would have been dyed by crofters, and, they would have woven the silks in the capital, and so and so. So, whereas this show, I didn't feel it felt like that as much. And with that being said, they are bringing in a new costume designer for season 2. So we'll have to see what
They're
happens.
not keeping Jenny to me. Oh, really?
No, and I don't think it's a matter of, they were you're gone. I think there's a lot of this, I know we went through this on The Witcher, and I was a little upset about that. The guy had another project that she was offered, and I think she wanted to take that opportunity. During COVID was probably really, really difficult. So I don't think it's always a matter of the fans don't like your costumes, you're gone. I don't think it's as easy as that versus, say, something like Lord of the Rings, which, Robert, I think you know how I feel about those costumes.
Well, let's get on to those costumes in just one moment. I would just love the other people here just to what their thoughts were, because I thought with House of the Dragon, I really liked it. I didn't think there was anything that blew me away, that in the same way that, and I'm not a costume guy, but there were some things in Game of Thrones that I thought, like Sansa's dress in that last scene when she was being crowned, I thought that was absolutely amazing. There was nothing that completely blew me away in House of the Dragon, but I thought everything was just good. And I loved the use of murder hoodies. I think that should now be obligatory in every show, that you should have. If somebody's about to do an evil deed, they should just put on their hoodie.
Palpatine.
Helen, what's your? We'll go around the people. You can start. What was your take on the costumes in House of the Dragon?
I didn't read that.
Okay, over to you, Mark.
I actually, maybe this speaks to my own personal fashion sense. But I was like, dude, these costumes look amazing. I swear to God, the video's out from months ago to prove it. Especially Viserys when he's talking to Otto, and Otto's like, "You must marry your daughter to Aegon," and then Patty's like, "He's two." Like the costume he's wearing there, he's got his hunting leathers on. That looked amazing. Also, I might have sounded like I was making fun of the murder hoodies, but those were awesome. Like it was a little bit big, but I thought, because what I got used to with Game of Thrones, and I love the costume designer for Game of Thrones, they should have just brought her over for the show. I don't know why they didn't. They brought a couple of people, not everybody, I guess. Maybe it was a contract. Hopefully they bring her in for season 2 if there's an opening. But I think she was probably directed to go, hey, make these costumes darker for the later seasons of Thrones. And that's what I kind of got bored with. When you're reading A Song of Ice and Fire, you're like, oh my God, if I saw someone wearing that costume, that person would look crazy. Like, for instance, Illyrio Mopatis, right? He's got a fondness for like giant golden yellow robes and stuff, and he, got, a little bit of extra weight to him. So I feel like we might actually get a costume that is how it's described in any one of the main series of books. Robert, can I list all of them in order? Because that's like my favorite thing. Once I started reading the books, I could do that, and there's so many of them. I used to not be able to do that. I was kidding. So anyway, I feel like with this show, I feel like with this show we could potentially get something. Well, I like the costumes. I thought, and mainly that was because the last thing that was in my head was from Game of Thrones, how dark everybody's costumes were. Like, if you read the gowns that Cersei's wearing in A Dance with Dragons, okay, she's in jail. But after she gets out, you can assume that she will wear, and Winds of Winter will probably be striking emerald, awesome fabric embroidery. I'm just saying, style words here. But yeah, I feel like we might get something like that in House of the Dragon. So I like them. So I agree with some of the points you made, but
Heidi, what did you think of especially the armor in? You've seen, I guess, Lord of the Rings of Power, right? So what did you think of all the different armors? Because there was a lot, there was a big discussion about that one, especially
well, I personally liked
Númenórean.
it. Yeah, I'm a huge, I love that costume designer. She's one of my favorite costume designers. And I know there was a lot of, I honestly, to be honest with you, Robert, I think you and I were chatting at the beginning. I love the costumes, and there was a lot of backlash about it. And one of the things I sort of came to the conclusion that it kind of looked like it was a medieval design through like a 1960s lens. So like the old sort of like Spartacus and the old movies of, that we used to see these women, these Hollywood women in the 1950s and 60s with the corseted waists and the way everything was draped by Edith Head, that type of design. So it sort of felt like it was not authentically medieval or fantasy, but through sort of a bit of a 1960s lens. And so, but I kind of pulled away from the whole discussion because, to be honest with you, it is so toxic, and I don't like it. I don't like dealing with that. I know people do, and even House of the Dragon, I kind of pulled away from that as well. So I have gone on to talk about other things that I enjoy doing. So that's sort of what happened with me there.
But I think, for a lot of people, because they know Weta and they know what Weta workshops, have done in the past with the OG movies, right? So I think that was where some of the disappointment and the question marks came from a lot of people, because I think Weta, I'm not sure that I didn't know the costume designer, but Weta was involved in a lot as I understood it, but it was COVID and all of that. I think COVID was in generally a big point for this show, that it was for me a disappointment, and you could feel it, that there weren't enough people, and maybe that was also a reason for maybe there couldn't be costume designers flown into New Zealand. We know they had really strict regulations and everything.
Yeah, well, Edith's from New Zealand. She's a New Zealand costume designer, and she was supposed to originally work on the Hobbit with Guillermo del Toro, but that fell through. So I spoke to this company who provided a lot of the fabrics and everything for the show, and he couldn't tell me what happened there. But she's worked a lot with Guillermo del Toro. She's worked in Toronto, Canada, where I live. And she's worked on Crimson Peak, which was one of my favorite costume designs of all time. Now, in terms of the scale, like I actually really love the scale. It's actually fairly historically accurate. Like on a show like, say, House of the Dragon, the scale is usually just leather and it just sort of hangs there. They don't actually have it riveted. So they actually had it properly riveted so that, weapons can't like get underneath it. But again, like I said, I think it has that sort of old Hollywood 1960s lens that you're looking through it. So I just, as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to like it. But if I go talk about it online, I'm just going to get attacked. So I've just decided to stay away from it altogether. So it's my personal preference.
No, we can all completely appreciate that. Particularly around Rings of Power, there was a lot of toxicity. Dave and Johnny, I don't want to exclude you from this. I'll ask you.
Yeah, sorry about that, guys.
In just one moment. But one I remember, one thing, I think I said it to you on Twitter, actually, Heidi. I was lucky enough to see some of the costumes for the Rings of Power. So the Galadriel armor was one of them, and I think one of Elrond's costumes was there as well. And I can remember looking at them and thinking, I really wish that Heidi was here to tell me what to look out for. But the thing which struck me about them, and I'd love to know whether this is normal or not, but on something like, say, the Wheel of Time, I found that a lot of that was it just felt everything was clean. Everything was just too nice, too perfect. Whereas the costumes that I saw in person were deliberately frayed. They were deliberately made to look worn in. The armor, although it looks beautiful, has some missing links and things like that, which was obviously an effort to make it look real. Is that normal to go to that level of sort of focus in on making things look real, or was that just the Wheel of Time was bad at it?
I think the Wheel of Time did do it. I just don't think you could see it. I did.
Oh, okay.
I did do some zooming in on some of the pictures. I actually like the Wheel of Time costume. So maybe I'm an outlier here, guys.
I think I'm more likely to be the outlier.
It's funny because somebody the other day did a comparison between all the medieval shows, like the fantasy shows, like this looks the same as this one and this one. And I go, yeah, there's a little bit of that, but they all use, again, the medieval Celtic, like Lord of the Rings. Like I even said about Viserys's crown. I was like, yeah, his crown looks like something you would see in Lord of the Rings, as if they 3D printed it. But, so it's almost like they're running out of ideas. They keep going to the same well, and they keep using the same sort of ideas and historical influences. And even Jenny Tamim, she used the Celtic, she used that, that tropey Celtic clasp, even though it was shaped like a dragon. It wasn't completely original, and she put it on every costume in the show. At least on a Targaryen. And I actually didn't really mind it. I just thought, maybe don't use it on everybody, like use it maybe on a few people, but maybe don't use it on the entire cast kind of thing. But, and back to what you were saying about Viserys's leather outfit. I love that outfit. So you and I are on the same page on that one. But sorry, Robert, I've now gone off on a tangent.
No, I love your tangents, but this is a chance to get Dave and Johnny to give us their thoughts.
Yeah,
What were
go
your
ahead, guys.
thoughts on either Rings of Power or House of the Dragon, or both?
I'll jump in on, well, first of all, on House of the Dragon, I would agree with most of us here, and I would say that I loved most of it. Well, I don't know if I would say I loved, there was nothing that really jumped out, but I thought everything was just correct for what it needed to be, and everything felt like it fit, and there was nothing that I saw that was kind of out of place, so I wouldn't say too much more about that. I loved how they brought in the part where it's like, oh, she's wearing the green dress for the first time, and this is a big deal, and it wasn't anything too over the top. It was just a nice dress that fits the moment, and it was green. So I think that was all fine. That was good. In terms of the Rings of Power, one of the things that I wasn't sure, it was just the lack of change of costume as well, particularly to people like Gil-galad, who's like, I loved his gold on gold. It was amazing. But just every episode, it's like, oh, he's wearing exactly the same thing. And the same with Celebrimbor as well, where he's just wearing this one green gown. Again, I liked it. It looked very comfortable. I don't know if there's a lot of people saying things online about that as well. I didn't. A lot of people hated that costume. I particularly thought it was nice, but it would have been nice to see them wearing different things from time to time. So, but apart from that, we saw the behind the scenes recently that came out on, and one of the things that they mentioned was in the opening sequence where we see Galadriel and she's there with her group, and they're supposed to be 1,000 years chasing Sauron, and they say how they're elves, so there would have been points where they would have got injured, but they would have just healed, but obviously their clothes wouldn't have healed, so there would have been tears, and maybe they would have been, I don't know, shot with an arrow, and there'd be an arrow hole in their fabrics and things like that. So those details, we knew that they were going to those incredible lengths to get those details involved as well. So I think in terms of the amount of attention to detail that went into it, you could see that. It was incredible. For me, just as I said, the lack of change of costume for one or two characters was something that kind of stood out to me. But again, I loved most of the visuals for the Rings of Power, and the fabrics and the costume design was a big part of that. Special shout out as well to the orcs. I know a lot of that is not just the costumes that they're wearing, but it's all of the prosthetics. But even their costume design was really cool as well. We got to see a whole different side of these orcs, that they're trying to protect themselves from sunlight, so they're using these bones and different types of helmets that they have. They've built these little tunnels with canopies over them. So all of those details I really loved as well. So
yeah, and their masks were truly terrifying. Those masks, it was like something out of a horror movie. I actually adored those. I thought they were amazing.
I wanted to ask you, Heidi, and see what your opinion was on the orcs in general.
I thought they were great. I thought they did a great job, and I love the fact that they have pieces of costumes that they would have picked up along the way. Like it's sort of like ragtag. They're ragtag,
They have like old elven
exactly.
helmets,
like they have, so they've assembled like different things and collected them over it. Kind of like it reminded me of like the wildlings, or what do you call them? Danny's horse people. Sorry, I can't remember the name. As they go along, they sort of pick things up along. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Robert, Daenerys' horse people, what are they called again? Dothraki, yes, please. Thank you. So, they do the same thing after every time there's a war. Sorry, I'm in my 50s. I can't remember things unless I've written it down.
They're basically Huns. They're like exactly like Huns.
Yeah. So every time they conquer, then they start wearing those items. And I thought that was really cool.
I'm just going to take this pause just to remind people watching that this is a charity live stream, and in aid of Médecins, Sans frontières, Doctors Without Borders, which is a fantastic charity. I've sung their praises earlier in the stream, so I'm not going to do it again. But I see that we're just over $800. I would love us to reach 1,000 by the end of this live stream. So if you've been holding out and were thinking, I will donate, this is how I would love you to show your appreciation for the stream, for anything I've been doing this year. If you have some spare money, this is a wonderful way to be spending it. Please, Andrew, thank you. But just to sort of top off the specifically costume questions here, I want to ask you more broadly about things, because your views on other things as well, Heidi. But we're sort of having a look back over the year of the best things of this year, of the things that you've seen, because always, when you get these lists for things like Oscars and Emmys and whatever, some of the things you've seen, some of the things you haven't seen, so you might not be able to comment on them. But from what you've seen, where were the best costumes this year?
Well, Robert, you did that little poll online, right? And you didn't have a costume item in your list, so I added Wednesday. Yeah, I think Wednesday was the best costume design of the year for fantasy. Maybe not sci-fi, but because I guess it's not technically, I guess it would be fantasy if it was nominated for an Emmy. And it's because it's like the costume designer on that. She is fantastic. She's a veteran costume designer. Colleen Atwood, she's worked with, countless people. Tim Burton, namely, is the biggest one that she's worked with, and she's done almost all of his movies. And of course, I adore her work. But I watched that show. My husband was watching it, and I was kind of like not completely paying attention. But I have to tell you, there was not one thing in that show that was even slightly off. It was like perfectly selected, constructed. The materials were beautiful. The color palette that they used, not just for the black for Wednesday, but for the other characters, just the way they juxtapose them to each other. Yeah, Asen says, calling out was a goddess. And then my other favorite show, and this might surprise you, is Severance, which was on Apple TV. It was an early show that came out in the year, and I loved it. And again, I guess it would be science fiction. I'm not quite sure exactly what that you would call that. Maybe speculative fiction. I'm not exactly sure. It's a really interesting show, but the design on that is unbelievable. And again, it has sort of like 1960s, like IBM inspiration. The colors in it are really interesting from the opening shot. The cinematography is amazing. So that's my other. Oh, yeah. And then, sorry, Asen's reminding me one other show. 1899 is the other show that I'm going to have to highly, highly recommend. One of the best costume designs, definitely for the year. And it's the same people who did Dark, which is a German show, which you can watch it with translation, like with dub over. Yeah. Or you from, yeah. I would highly recommend watching it with subtitles. But again, it's kind of German. Like, I don't even know how you describe it. Like, you could say it's historical, it is science fiction, it is fantasy.
Steampunk or something?
Steampunk, exactly. So, those are all really amazing costume designs, and I would easily recommend any of those to your viewers. I mean,
certainly for Wednesday, it was a really fun show to start with. But yeah, the costumes I thought looked fantastic. I mean, it must be a costume designer's dream, actually, when you get make a swooping black dress for Morticia, Catherine Zeta-Jones. Just, I mean, you can't really go wrong with it, can you? But so I would absolutely support that.
So I have a question.
Go.
So did you not like Viserys' hunting leathers in that scene where he's talking Sir Otto?
Oh no, I loved it. Oh, you didn't hear me. Yeah, no. I loved all of the leathers that were worn by all the different families, and that was one of my favorite costume episodes. My issues were more with the females, and Rhaenyra, hers was probably my biggest issue. So the men's were actually, for the most part, pretty solid, and I liked most of the armor as well. I thought most of it was really good. Wasn't quite as crazy about the white cloaks. That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, that one. I think the armor for like how they have it banded around the chest piece, that definitely took me some time to get used to, because I remember seeing it on. Oh man, this is embarrassing. Who's the actor who played?
Was it Graham McTavish?
Yes, Graham McTavish.
I knew who you meant. How did I do that?
Yeah, when we saw him from far away in the leaked pictures or whatever, before we saw him in the trailer, I was like, man, this is gonna look amazing. And then when I did see it on screen on Cole, I was like, oh, this is it looks a little weird up close, but I think it's because it's hard to do, at least the rumor is, hard to do white enamel steel. It's near impossible to make that look good or something. So
yeah, and I know Michelle Clapton, she kind of, she didn't do it exactly like it was in the book either, and she sort of, did her own take on it, and then Jenny did her own take on it, and I appreciate it. I think it wasn't as much the chevron sort of that I didn't really mind that. It was that it wasn't smooth. If it had been inlaid and smooth and like real steel armor looking, I probably would have liked it a lot better. But because it looked kind of I don't know what it was. It was patchwork.
Banded leather or something?
Yeah, it was yeah. So, and a lot of this is nitpicking, but this is just because I honestly, Robert knows this probably, I spend hundreds of hours looking at pictures of costumes. And so that's what happens sometimes to you. You just become a little bit bonkers. And Tony Teflon said this to me as well, and I agree with what you guys all said as well, is that normally when you watch a show and you like the costumes, you go, yeah, they look good to me, and it doesn't take me out of the story. That's actually really successful. That means that's a good costume design. But, but because I'm looking at it with maybe a little bit more of a lens, I'm maybe seeing things that I'm not as happy about. And so that's sort of, but if you guys are watching it and you're feeling I'm not, I'm immersed in the story, I'm not feeling taken out of the story by anything in particular, except for maybe that green dress, but that's supposed to be that, it's supposed to be that sort of hallmark, moment where she comes in and she's wearing this green gown that's supposed to be a true statement gown. So other than that, I think that means that was really successful.
Excellent. I think what I want to do is move on to a couple of. I want to, before we end the stream, which is not yet, but I want to get from everybody what their show of the year was, just the sort of the best thing you've seen this year. But one of the other things Heidi mentioned, I did put a little Twitter thing out a week or so ago, just asking people what was their show of the year, best acting of the year, and things like that. The cat is back, everyone. The cat is back.
So cute.
But one of the other things I was asking, which I'd love to hear from people, is what was the most fun thing this year? Because it's not necessarily, when we talk about what the best show of the year, it's often quite gritty drama or something like that. But and I'll start off with What We Do in the Shadows, which is amazing fun. It's really good. If you've never seen it, just tune in and enjoy. There's nothing to dislike about it. It's really good. Dave and Johnny, let's start with you. What's been the most fun thing you've seen this year?
Well, when you first asked that question, like what is the greatest TV show this year, I actually was gonna say, for me, I'll always look back on this year with a lot of joy and a lot of fun with the Rings of Power, not just because of the show itself, but more everything that surrounded the show. The fact that, we covered a lot of it on our podcast, and we actually made so many friends through it. So completely separately to why anyone else would enjoy the show or hate the show or find it fun, I just think for myself, I'm going to remember this year, 2022, as like the year Rings of Power Season 1 came out, and I just had a blast for months, like leading up to it, the build up, like breaking down trailers. I know there's been a lot of negativity online as well, but it's been really, really fun. And then I don't know, a lot of excitement as well. But like, I'm not saying that it was the greatest bit of television that we've ever seen, but that's how I was going to answer it anyways, before you even brought up the whole fun aspect. So yeah, Rings of Power would.
We had fun during that series. Not that the series itself was fun, but we had a fun time.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
so that's you.
I'd say a similar answer, but I'd also say in terms of just the, I think Andor again was just such a strong, like, it was just fantastic. It was such a surprise. Like, as you described it earlier, Robert, you said it was the Star Wars show that you didn't know you needed. And I think...
But the one you deserved.
Yeah. For Gotham. Yeah, again, it was a really, really fun show. And like they had those kind of 3 different story arcs as well. So it was kind of, I don't know, it was... Yeah, a really, really great show. Surprise show of the year. I'd say that, for me, the top 3 shows are the ones that we've been talking about for most of the night. The Rings of Power, House of the Dragon, and then Andor would get in there as well. So.
And Miss Marvel.
And Miss Marvel,
What about She-Hulk? I haven't seen that either one of those shows either. Is that good?
I haven't seen any of it. I've heard some bad things, but again, there's just negative.
I saw a meme.
There's negative things out there about everything, so
there is negative. But I'm trying to emphasise the positive here. So, which is why the fun. Mark, what for you was the most just pure fun thing that you saw this year?
Probably It's Always Sunny, the newest season of that.
Oh, in Ireland.
They went to Ireland, yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they tried to with the bog. Yes, I don't want to spoil it for anybody who hadn't seen it, but yeah, It's Always Sunny delivers, and it's on its 20th season, so that was
amazing,
definitely.
Yeah.
And you already said it, What We Do in the Shadows, so that was my next. Matt Berry is hilarious.
Yeah. I'm a big Matt Berry fan.
The guy that creates It's Always Sunny, and one of the actors in it, Mac, he stayed at the hotel that I don't work in anymore, but I worked there for 5 years, so he stayed there during the time that they were filming in Ireland, which was pretty cool.
For the recent season?
Actually, no, he stayed there
because he's like from, I think he's not from Ireland,
ago.
But his dad is or something.
Yeah, no, maybe it was a few years ago, and sorry, it wasn't during the filming, but he definitely came out here, and we all got a good look at him.
What about you, Helen? What was the most fun thing you saw this year?
I'm not sure if it was out this year or if it's older, but I started Ted Lasso.
Oh yeah, new season though.
Fun. Yeah.
And it's so cool. I love it. I love the playing with Americans in England and with all the stereotypes. I really enjoyed it, and Jason Sudeikis is just amazing. And yeah, What We Do in the Shadows, I loved it. I think I binge watched it's in summer, from season 1 onwards on again. And what's her name? She's my spirit animal. What's her name? I forgot.
I've forgotten them. I can't remember the names of the characters. To be
I
honest, but,
remember Laszlo.
Not him.
but yes, I can see why she is your spirit animal. There is a hint of her to you. Let's put it that way.
Isn't she Greek or something? The actress is Greek, or her character is Greek, maybe. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
she's hilarious. She's very funny. She's probably my favorite next to the dude that is Laszlo's servant, I think. It's embarrassing that I said I love the show and I can't remember any of the characters, but we have so much.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Guillermo. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Heidi? What was the most fun thing you saw this year?
I'm embarrassed to say I haven't seen what they do in the shadows. I saw the movie, like the original, which I adored. But I have to watch that. So, guys, after your recommendation, I was going to say, just not even like a costume show as much, although there is some fun costuming in it. Is Yellow Jackets was one of those shows that I kind of like. I saw something about it online, and I didn't know anything about it, but I went into it, and it was so fun. Like, kind of like dark, twisty. I don't even know what frame you would put it into. It's sort of just it's horror, maybe. I thought it was really fun. Also, Stranger Things, the latest season was really good too. I thought.
Oh, Peacemaker as well.
Oh, that was fun.
Yeah, Peacemaker, absolutely.
Was
yes,
a lot of fun.
I also
highly
forgot
agree.
to bring it up, but like one of our favorite TV shows, The Boys.
Oh,
absolutely.
The Boys, yes.
Yeah.
I liked the first season, but I couldn't watch the Stormfront season.
I loved every
and you know what? It's
moment.
the same thing with Game of Thrones, right? So I didn't start watching Game of Thrones till 2013, around there, because everybody kept saying it's the best show ever, and I'm like, man, whatever. And then finally watched it, and I was like, oh, this is the best show ever. So I watched The Boys. First season was hilarious. I was like, this is awesome, because Marvel movies need this edgy blood sport kind of like thing. But then when I saw what happens in the comics and then what they chose to do on the show, I was like, what? So it was kind of, I don't know. That it's a corny reason, I know, but that's the only reason why I haven't watched it. It's probably decent. I just haven't, seen
I've
it.
read some of the graphic novels as well for The Boys, and there's a lot of different things from that in the show, but I can see them as just two sort of separate things, and just I have a lot of fun watching The Boys as well. I think it's
so fun.
I remember when people were saying there was all that negativity about Amazon Prime before The Rings of Power came out, and one of my arguments I remember speaking to a friend was, The Boys for me is one of the best things on TV currently, and that's made by Amazon Prime as well. So, I would put it up very, very high up at the list as well.
It's not because the actor is from Lord of the Rings. It's not because of that, right? Because I've seen a thread post where someone made a point that was like, if you have the right amount of actors that can pull, like, so we got somebody from Lord of the Rings, obviously, but then there's other, I'm not familiar with Anthony Starr, but there's a couple of the other actors, and like, if you can, I don't know. It was a silly post, but
what's his name?
Billy Butcher?
Yeah, what's the actor's name?
Aemir?
Yeah, Aemir.
What's Aemir?
Oh, that's right. He's from Lord of the Rings.
Oh my god.
Carl Urban.
Carl Urban.
Yeah.
And then his father in The Boys is the guy who plays Denethor.
John Noble.
John Noble, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
with him
quite a
eating
few-
is it
the guy that
cherries?
Eats the
The
cherries. Oh, the
tomato.
Cherry tomatoes.
Yeah.
That is disgusting. That's one of the grossest scenes in any
love
film or TV. He's like,
Anything in The Boys.
tell me more.
But some of the best memes ever.
Yeah. 100%.
Great movie.
I kind of look at the violence in The Boys. Kind of, it's very campy. Like, it's not like, it's just so ridiculous and over the top in a way, and it's just and the social commentary that they do. I just think it's just, like a cartoon almost in many ways.
Well, it is kind of like a cartoon.
Yeah.
As well.
I like Invincible.
Comics as well, so. And like the behind the scenes of how they do those ridiculous like head explosions and things like that. It's so well done. And
What do you think about the costumes in that, Heidi? Is that...
Oh, I think they're really good. It's funny because I'm doing a video on Elf right now, and just in time for
Movie.
Christmas, and the woman who did the costumes for Elf, she actually designed the super suits for The Boys.
Hey,
And she does actually, like, she has this little team of people. They do all these superhero shows. So that's what she specializes in. And no, I think they're amazing, and I love Howie's like all his ironic T-shirts and obviously the super suits are amazing. No, I think it's amazing design. I love it. But I love Butcher. Like I love his look.
Yeah, he doesn't change, right? He just always wears that. Black
He's always wearing like a trench, like kind of like a leather trench.
Pretty
And the
much
collar's
always
always up. And
every
His
t-shirt
accent
that Huey
doesn't
wears,
bother
I'm
you?
Like, I want that T-shirt.
it's really great. It's interesting though, because in that case, so they have one person doing the super suits, and they have another costume designer doing the other costumes, the contemporary costumes. So it's an interesting sort of a little bit of a different thing than they normally do. Like on Marvel shows, they usually have have a designer who kind of designs all of the super suits. And it's like Ryan Meinerding does like pretty much all of them. And then the designer sort of works with him, like with the concept people. So I think it's a very different process doing those types of shows, I think, than it would be just doing a traditional design, like say Lord of the Rings or House of the Dragon or something like that.
In the chat, Andrew K saying White Lotus is fun in a somewhat dark way. I've not seen. I've heard lots of people say good things about White Lotus, but I've not seen any. But has anyone seen it? Nope. Okay, end of that conversation. But I hear it's good. So
I just started watching it, Robert, but just
have
only
you?
like 3 episodes in.
Isn't there like a giant peen, like a guy shows a giant peen? That's something I listened to a comedy podcast, and they were talking about how they love White Lotus. And in one of the first couple of episodes, there's a guy that walks by naked. He's got a giant. That's the one thing I know about White Lotus. There's
one of those in The Boys as well.
Well, yeah, but
Yeah,
I've seen a lot of The Boys. I just haven't seen the most recent season. That's all.
There's one of the principal characters who shows his wife, and it's a double. So maybe is that maybe what they're talking about? It's full.
Oh, it's
full,
not real. Is
Well,
it real?
I think it's a body double.
Someone else,
showing,
yeah.
but it's supposed to be Steven Zahn's, parts.
Yeah, because the comedy.
I don't know
podcast,
how I say this.
The comedy podcast I
You're doing
listen
well so
to.
far.
Yeah,
Robert.
they're saying like
Robert
the guy
Is this
just.
to convince us to see it, or yes or no, Heidi?
Well, I didn't really particularly find it shocking because there's a context to it, and it didn't seem like, like it. I don't know. I should just step back here.
Okay. Well,
has anybody else seen that 1899? Because I've just seen the first 2 episodes of it, and it's quite good so far. Is it worth, Heidi? Is it worth continuing on with it?
Absolutely.
Okay. I enjoyed
You gotta.
the first two
It's like an
episodes, but
onion. You gotta.
I was quite
unpeel
tired
it.
watching both of them, and I just felt like, oof, this is quite slow. But I can imagine it's probably worth the wait. Like you said, unraveling the onion. Is that an expression?
And it makes you cry.
Unravel an onion.
I don't think the
But
unravel
remove
one.
the layers of
Peel,
the onion.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Peel an
Unravel?
onion. Thank you. I was like, what's inside this onion? Unraveling it. Yeah. You peel
Like
an
a
onion.
Kinder
Yeah.
Surprise onion.
Let me just say we've got about half an hour to go, and we've got about $100 to go. So if you want,
And we've got a baby.
We've a new guest.
You have a baby.
She's-
What? You have a baby?
Yes, my son is like eating pizza, and she's like, I want to go upstairs, so I can go get her.
Wow.
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Show us
Well,
the baby.
welcome. We've had a cat and a baby. If anyone else brings some other exciting thing. Oh, and a wave. Nice. Before we get into best show of the year, is there anything that you think just deserves an award just because? Because I always feel that there are some things that you think probably isn't like the best out there. It's not going to win awards, but this show, this person, whatever, deserves an award, some sort of recognition. And I will put Andy Serkis out there because I think he just generally deserves an award somewhere at some point in his life. Maybe he's won something I've not seen, but I just think as an actor, he's particularly with the stuff that he did with Gollum, and then obviously with moving on with King Kong and things like that, he was the master of doing that. And there is no other bit of sort of filming that I've seen where one person is so synonymous with it. But is there? So I would give Andy Serkis, particularly this year with what he did in Andor, I thought was fantastic. Mark, I think you're going to have to go in a moment.
I'm gonna try to put her in the in the crib right here and see if she'll be okay. But as soon as she starts crying, I'm gonna check out because I don't want this to mess up.
Well, good luck with it.
Just hang on 1 second.
But Helen, what about you? Is there anyone that you or anything that you think deserves an award just because this year?
Yes, a Razzie. Can I say something negative, please?
Oh, just one, Helen. You've been very good all stream. You've been positive.
I know. But I'm really disappointed in all of the characterizations of all the elves because they're all wrong. Because the thing is, I was always a fan of Gil-galad. For me, he was one of the best High Kings. He was foresighted, all that. They took away, and yes, the boys just said, maybe the characters will get redeemed in season 2. I don't know. Will it happen? Did these people just misunderstand the character? Do they, on purpose, want to, show us different elves, different sides of elves? But yeah, I'm very disappointed in Gil-galad. I'm not even talking about Galadriel, but this whole character is completely different in the books. It has not this characterization of the High King of the Elves, one of the most important characters, got completely butchered, and I'm really angry about that. I mean, you can think what you want of Galadriel. Is she, I think she will get her redemption. I'm not so sure of Gil-galad. I think they misunderstood that character completely. And I'm actually angry about that. So I would give a Razzie to that one. But I said it before, I really liked the portrayal because I didn't know anything about the actor. The character in the books was really flat. So Viserys, Paddy Constantine, I really loved that because he fleshed out that role. And I just thought he was a merry, drunk king who, just didn't care. And the way he portrayed him, and I think I read that Paddy also added to that. It was not just the writing. I think he brought in a lot of his ideas how to portray him, and I really always enjoy that when that happens. And you hear that very often with really good actors, that they also change a role with ideas. And yeah, so that's my positive, and that's my negative.
Excellent. Let's go to. It looks like the Irish guys have brought the drinks in. We'll come to them in just one moment.
That's why I like European people. All right, so that joke right there is perfect.
It's 1:45 in the morning.
The Irish guys are getting
so I
drunk.
will allow them a beer. I think that's okay. Heidi, how about you? What is there anyone that you would give an award to just because this year?
Yeah, I was going to say what Helen. It's Helen, right? I'm Heidi. Helen and Heidi. I was going to say I agree with Paddy Constantine. I'm not sure if I'm saying his name right. I thought he did amazing, and I know he's going to get a lot of probably recognition. So because of that, I'm actually going to say I think Matt Smith deserves like some kind of award because I thought he did such a great job. I was one of the early people who were like, wasn't sure about his casting. I didn't, go on social and, berate him or anything, but I was just like, personally, I just was, and Asen's here, she knows this. I don't know if he's right, but he totally sold me on him. And I thought he did a fantastic job and he looked great in his costume. So there you go.
But I think that was because we all had a picture in mind, how we pictured him in our mind. Mm-hmm. And I think, and I didn't have that for Viserys. I think when you see fan art, and shout out to all the amazing artists, by the way, Robert always does this on his channel, but I think for all of us, all these artists, who create all these pictures in our head, because he was always, like just a fat, merry guy. And so, yeah, but yeah, I agree. His portrayal was epic.
Dave and Johnny, what about you? Anyone you think deserves an award just because this year?
I mean, there's all the obvious ones that you guys have mainly touched on, but I really, if I have to try and think of someone that's not just the obvious choices, I was going to go for the actor Peter Mullen, who played King Durin. So Durin the Third, he was I really enjoyed Prince Durin's performance as well, but I think that King Durin, he just embodied what a dwarven king should be. His voice was incredible. I liked his costume design as well. I liked his giant nose that they gave him, and I just thought like he just had a presence about him. It's like every time he was on screen, I was kind of reminded of King Theoden from The Lord of the Rings. He would just, you were just captivated by every word he was going to say. So I thought his addition to the Rings of Power was huge, and I loved that. And again, just to give you something that's not just the obvious choices like you guys have spoken about already, but yeah.
And he's from Westworld as well.
From Westworld.
Yes.
Right. Yes.
Oh.
I didn't know that. I actually had to look it up. I didn't know it was him until I looked it up, and I was like, oh my gosh, like his makeup is so good and convincing.
Yeah.
Which season? I've only seen the first two seasons.
Delos.
Or like
Yeah,
just 3.5.
he's Mr. Delos.
Yeah.
In season 3?
seasons?
Animatronic cowboys.
I think
I
he's
saw
in.
No.
1 and 2.
No, he was the guy who was the main man in charge of the park.
Yeah.
He's the father-in-law of William.
Yeah.
And there's
William
a really
marries
cool
his daughter.
scene where they replay that scene over and over. He's
Yes.
I need
so
to
good in that
rewatch
scene.
Westworld.
I need to rewatch season
Yeah.
1. Such a good season. I was going to say for my what was this question? It was like award just because. Yeah.
Just because, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to have to say Bear McCreary. I don't really think I need to give any reasons why. We're all
Good call.
in agreement with how amazing his music has been, and not just for the Rings of Power. God of War game has just come out, or maybe a month ago, but like the first God of War game I played, or his first God of War game, anyways, and absolutely loved it. And the music was brilliant in that. And Bear McCreary actually features in the new God of War game. He's a character in it, so that's pretty cool.
Does.
And he's just so cool, such a nice gentleman, and yeah, I really enjoyed him on your stream, Robert, as well. He answered some really, really good questions and was kind of giving away lots of spoilers, which I really appreciated. He just seems like he's like having a fun time and just loving life. And yeah, anytime I see him featuring on somebody else's podcast, I'll go and I'll listen to that, even though they probably ask him the same questions. But I love hearing him. He's great.
He's a fun guy.
He is a fun guy, like a mushroom.
He was, yeah, and I can confirm he came across as exactly how he was off camera. He was the same on camera, and I have to say those the interviews I did with him probably they didn't get the biggest views out of anything by a long way during Rings of Power, but they're probably the ones that I thought were the best that I did. He was really engaging, and you could tell his passion.
Yeah.
And it's just so great to hear somebody who's a master of what they do just explain what they do as well, and break down how you create the soundtrack for something like that. It was absolutely brilliant. And yeah, the little Easter eggs about how you hints about who Sauron was and things like that. It's which, just if you don't want to watch the video, for example, the Hellbrand theme played backwards with one slight change is the Sauron theme, so he dropped that into the early episodes just as hints, so that we might sort of start to be questioning some of these things.
Hey, Robert, sorry to interrupt. I'm being summoned.
Not a problem at all. Mark, it's been an absolute pleasure. Go off and do a far more important job than this, and have yourself a wonderful Christmas and a great New Year. Just before you leave, one word answer: best show of the year?
Best show of the year. Well, House of the Dragon. House of the Dragon.
Thanks, Mark.
Multiple reasons, but mostly because of the wait for season 8. All right, yo, thank you. Thanks, Robert. Yeah, by the way, y'all can find me on YouTube at Sir Hunt's Reviews, which...
Excellent.
Bye.
Highly recommended. Now he's gone, I'll plug him even more. Do go and check out Sir Hunt's Reviews. I'm sure if you're watching live, the moderators will be putting links in the chat. His channel mostly covers House of the Dragon, and he's there. Slightly different style to mine, but he comes in with a lot of good speculative stuff as well. And as you've heard, he he listens through the stories now several times a year, so he's going to be quite the expert on it. But I started there with the best show of the year. Why don't we go, Heidi? What's your take? What is the best show of this year?
Well, I think I'm going to have to say Severance. I loved House of the Dragon, but I have to say, like, I have never been so excited about a show that I didn't even know was, even there. And in case you guys don't know, it's Ben Stiller's show. He's not the writer, but he's the producer of the show, and it's all kind of whack, which is up my alley. Like, I love anything that really, really surprises me. So and then, as I mentioned, I love the design. It's sort of mid-century design. The cinematography is incredible. So I'm going to have to go with that one. And I know that the lead actor in it, whose name's escaped me right now again, Adam something or other, was nominated for a Golden Globe. So they're getting a little bit of recognition. I think John Turturro also got nominated for it. So I'm going to say that one.
Awesome. Severance is something else I've not seen.
Notes of what I need to watch.
Well, exactly,
it's on Apple.
Yeah.
And the reason why we watched it is, my husband, I guess he had bought a new Apple phone, like iPhone or something. And as part of the package, she got like 3 months of Apple, because I was like, oh, what are we going to watch on Apple? There's nothing on there. And then we went and we saw that and we're like, what is this? This looks interesting. And then I was like, whoa. And then I started watching like all the behind the scenes and like all the, the analysis. So I was just like, I had to know everything that was going on with it. It was one of those, like, a little bit obsessive, as I'm sure you guys all have experience with.
None of us know about obsessing over TV shows.
I love that literally no one mentioned Westworld. I still haven't seen the last, which now sadly is the last season. Have you all seen it?
Has it been cancelled?
I saw it. Yeah, so they cancelled. So season 5 is not going to happen.
Like,
I think
season
personally,
one
I
was
think
probably one of the best starting off seasons I've ever seen of a show.
Season 1, amazing.
Yeah.
And then
how was the last one? Was it?
I didn't get.
I didn't like it. I don't know about
it was
you,
okay.
Robert.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed watching it, but it wasn't up to the standard of the early seasons. It felt like a few things this year. It did feel as if it had been filmed during COVID. There were a lot of times when it was just like two characters in the same big room, and it was just I felt they did actually, although they wanted a 5th season, that I think it felt to me like they did end the arc. So I was reasonably content with it. So the problem is, the further into that show you got, the more immune you became to the, oh, this person's actually a robot. Oh, that person I thought had died but had come back. Oh, that person is actually somebody else in somebody else's body. So you can only go through that so many times before it just starts getting a little bit repetitive. So it's a shame, because it started, I would agree, season 1 for me, one of the finest seasons of TV that I've seen. Season 2 I thought was really, really good as well. Season 3 dropped a bit. Season 4 dropped a bit more, which is a shame. But
was season 3 when Aaron Paul came into it?
Yes.
Which
and I thought he was excellent. Just personally,
yeah, agreed. Yeah, I totally agreed. I think they had some really great concepts, Robert. I felt like maybe they were just writing themselves into a corner a little bit. I mean, you're more the analysis person than I am. I love the way it looked. I thought it was fantastic looking, but I kind of just lost interest, because I was like, well, I don't know. Like, who do I root for now? I don't even know who to root for.
Yeah.
He brought a lot of
Stranger Things as well. Sorry, Robert, to cut you off.
No, that's okay. He brought a lot of humanity to it, not just in terms of his character, but as an actor, the way that he presented it made us root for him. But sorry, Stranger Things you were talking about, which again, that was.
I was just going to say that I think that this was season 4, I think. I think that they really got back to, like, I think they had dropped off a little bit as well. Maybe season 3 wasn't very engaging, in my opinion. But I think that this one, again, it brought it back to maybe that kind of very fun. They introduced some new characters who were really fantastic. And I think that should get a bit of credit as well. I think Stranger Things is a bit strange. Yeah, Eddie was really good. It's no, as in, it's a little bit stranger than.
It's also a thing.
It's also a thing. It is, yes. But no, what I was going to say about that series is that when it comes along, I really enjoy it. I think it's a lot of fun, but then it's for some reason it's forgettable. I don't know why.
It's because it's that Netflix formula of just dumping it all on one
Yeah.
day, and then everyone forgets about it 2 weeks later when the next Netflix show comes out. I think that's a
Yeah,
silly
you're probably
formula.
Yeah, it just gets lost amongst all the other.
Yeah, and like I feel like nobody, because it's all dumped on that one day. You know you're not going to catch up with the people that are going to watch it all in the first couple of hours, so you never feel you're on the same page. When a TV show comes out on like a Monday night or Friday night or whatever, the whole world is anticipating what's going to come next, and then they can predict what's going to come out for the following week. And I love that. That's a part of TV shows. What they could just make Stranger Things a big giant movie. So I don't know.
Yeah,
It's just my opinion on it.
It's a lot harder for content creators as well, actually, dropping everything at the same time. Having covered The Witcher, I can just say it's really hard to know when should I be doing my episode breakdown for, because, like, realistically, how many people will binge it in one day? Some will, but most people, it'll take them a week, maybe 2 weeks. It's really hard to judge exactly when to do things. But anyway, those are my problems, not yours. Helen, what was your show of the year?
House of the Dragon.
Excellent.
The end.
And end the conversation. Johnny and Dave, what about you?
I would say House of the Dragon as well. I know I already said like the Rings of Power was like the fun one, but I think this was a House of the Dragon for me was just like a really good season, and I didn't really expect not that I didn't expect much, I just didn't expect it to be this good, and now I know that it's got me severely invested for the next couple of years, even if season 2 is poor and season 3 is not great, I'm still really invested. So, I loved it, absolutely loved it.
Yeah, there's part of me that wants to say House of the Dragon because I think it was probably the best written show of the year, and it was, looking back on it as one just piece of art or one work, it's fantastic. But then there's the other part of me that just, I was just more excited every time a new episode of Rings of Power dropped, because I definitely every time I clicked in, like every time I heard the score that Howard Shore did for the intro, I just every week without fail I was getting the hair standing on end. And so I think in terms of just the feeling that it gave me, for me the best show was still Rings of Power, despite any other problems that it had.
I was afraid every week it dropped.
What about you, Robert? Robert, what was your favorite show?
For me, House of the Dragon was my top show of the year. I want to give honourable mentions, and or I've already talked about. One thing we haven't really mentioned much was Sandman, which I thought was excellent. I thought it looked brilliant. I'd happily have any thoughts. I don't know whether you saw any of it, Heidi, about the costumes there, but I thought that visually, for me, was one of the shows of the year. It just had this incredible feel, very kind of gothic, dark feel going all the way through it, which I absolutely loved. So honourable mentions to those two, but House of the Dragon for me was the thing that I looked forward to every week, and it never disappointed. Every episode was like 8 out of 10 or more. It was there wasn't a dip at all, which...
I didn't enjoy Sandman. I didn't like it.
Did you not?
No, I made it halfway through and I just gave up. I'm sorry to say that.
Oh, I really like Sandman. Yeah, but I can see why some people might not. It's probably maybe not for everyone.
Is it you need to read the comics first before? Or?
I don't know. It's quite you don't have to in order to understand what's going on. But I think that, for me, this was now the third different way I've experienced it. So I've read the original, the graphic novels, I don't know, the comics or whatever they call themselves. But and then also there's a really good adaptation, a sort of a dramatization, which you can get on Audible, not advertising it. But it's I listened to it, which has got James McAvoy as playing Dream, and who is absolutely fantastic in it, and a cast of luminaries doing the roles around him, which is absolutely wonderful. So this was like the third different way of taking the story in. and I really enjoyed it. It was.
I think the episode that like the entire episode took place in the diner basically, and there was all these crazy stories. I think that for me that episode dragged on so much, and I was just like, oh, I don't even know what's going on. I don't know why this is important to the main plot, but I'm sure it probably is. Maybe I'll go back to it and give it a second try because I saw online as well on Twitter. Lots of people were saying that it was one of the best shows. So yeah, maybe I was too hasty, like in my judgment.
Well, it's the way it originally was done in the comics was standalone stories, and it's only when you start getting through quite a few of them that you start to see the themes and the overall narrative just starts to flow through. So the main character of Dream is often not the main character in any particular story. He always appears somewhere in some way, but it's a story about another person, and then he may just you will see his influence or something like that. And so that's how it works its way through. And each story has a slightly different feel. There's one which they did as a sort of a bonus one actually here, all about cats, which is just a very different style of doing it.
It was so beautiful, that episode.
Yeah, that was the one with the muse, right?
With the cat, the one with the animated one with the cats, the last episode. Do you know that one?
Oh, Calliope or
was it Calliope?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So and so each of them is a slightly different style, and you get one where you look at him meeting a person who has become immortal once every 100 years, which I just love this character that you just meets in a pub, and they arrange to meet once every 100 years just to chat about life. Which it's a fantastic kind of just idea. Anyway, Heidi, I was going to ask about the costumes for that. Have you done any thinking about those?
I haven't done a review on it. Asen and I have talked about it a little bit. Asen, I'm not sure if you know who the designer is, but no, I love the costume, and I know that they changed genders like on some of the characters, and I thought the whole design was amazing. Like, again, the sets and the costumes and the visuals were all just really beautiful. I haven't done a review on it, but no, I loved it. I love Neil Gaiman. Anything he does, I always adore.
Also, everybody, if you're on Twitter, follow Isun. I hope I pronounce it correctly. Let us know, because she's a magnificent artist, and I always, those dolls are so cool and so amazing. And she's very, in our whole community, loves all the fandoms. So follow her on Twitter, and obviously her artwork. I really love that because it's so different. I've never seen anything like it.
It's so true. She's done like a lot from Game of Thrones. Like she's done Dany and Cersei and Melisandre. I call her Asun, but I'm probably saying it wrong. I've been saying it that way for years. So Asun, if I'm saying
it's not a German name.
No, it's not.
Not her real name, but I would say Asun. But she's, I think, on the same. If not, post your Twitter handle, but follow her. Really good content, and we love our artists.
Absolutely. Cool. And I'm sure one of the people in the chat will be able to give a link across there. But yes, completely support all artists on this channel. They do fantastic work. And excellent news, we've just hit $1,000. So thank you so much to everyone. Ooh. That's absolutely wonderful. I was going to carry on with the stream until we hit $1,000. So thank you so much to everyone for that. That money will be hugely beneficial. It will quite literally be saving lives. So thank you so much for that. I think I will start drawing this to a close though now, as we've just gone over the 3-hour mark, and I said to everyone, you can just sort of jump on and jump off as you like. And these guys, I mean, I know Heidi, you've just been here for the last hour, but these guys have been here pretty much for the entire 3 hours, which is impressive work. I'll give you each a chance to sort of brag about your wonderful channels and places on the internet where we can find you. So why don't we start with the Melonheads? Where can people find you on the internet?
Well, before we mention that, I was just going to say that it's been 3 hours where I didn't give you a shout out for your Christmas jumper, Robert. I think it's the most wonderful Christmas jumper I've seen.
Robert, tell the story of the Christmas jumper. Who gave you that jumper?
I've got this one on.
Oh, that's an excellent Helen wants me to say that Helen bought me this jumper, which is true.
Well done, Helen.
Well done, Helen. All the glory goes to Helen. But where can we find you on the internet?
Yeah, so apart from that, you can find us on Twitter at melon_heads. That's melon with 2 L's. And you can also find us on YouTube, and our YouTube channel is called The Melonheads, or it's also called The Council of Elrond. You can find it there because we have our podcast, which is the Council of Elrond podcast, which is on Spotify or iTunes and any of those places. So those are the 2 main places, but of course we're on everywhere. Instagram, TikTok, all those places as well. But you can find, if you go to our Twitter page, you'll see our link tree there, and that's where you can get us.
Mark, who is no longer here, is Sir Hunt's Reviews on YouTube, so do check that out. He is also on all of those other places. You can find him on Twitter and Instagram and things like that, so please check him out. Helen, where do you exist on the internet?
Well, I did in my previous life before becoming a mom. No, just kidding. Yes, under the Clueless Fangirl. And again, I always promise that, but next year, it's big on my list. There will be more content. I do elf content, Lord of the Rings, Tolkien elf content. I'm the elf apologist. I'm the elf go-to person. Under the Clueless Fangirl. I have rants on Twitter sometimes and no real videos on TikTok, so rather don't follow me there yet.
Feanor, did he do anything wrong?
We had that discussion before. Yes, obviously, but I love my good baddie. Every story needs a Feanor.
Excellent. And Helen agrees with me that dwarves are better than elves. Just muted her there for a moment just so she can't reply. Wonder whether she'll notice. Unmuted again. Sorry, Helen. Heidi, tell us about Costume CO.
Sure. I have a channel called Costume Co. where I'm sort of changing it up, Robert. It's sort of like I'm doing an analysis of how costumes tell the story. So that's sort of where I'm kind of moving toward. So hopefully I'll have that worked out by the beginning of next year. And I'm on YouTube. I'm also on Twitter if you want to follow me there. And that's, if you ever want to hit me up and chat with me, that's always the best place. That's where I hang out with most of my friends. And it was just funny, Helen, because I was thinking, I said I'm doing an elf video, but I didn't mean Lord of the Rings elf. So hopefully you guys understood that. I meant the one that stars Will Ferrell.
Yeah.
So, and I just want to thank Robert. Thank you so much for having me and be part of this. And really, congratulations on raising over $1,000. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, don't thank me. Thank all of the wonderful, generous people out there. And you can incidentally continue to donate after the live stream, so the button will remain live. It sounds, Heidi, by the way, that I've been mispronouncing your channel name all this time. It's Costume Co, not Costume Co.
You know what? You can say it either way. You can say it's fine.
Oh, okay.
Because it used to be Cinematographico. Remember, I used to call it that, right? And then I was like, this is too. No one can say that. So I changed it just to Co or CO. So either way is totally acceptable. Oh, Robert, one more thing. I just want to say a shout out to your awesome mods. And every time I come in here and come into your streams, but also they'll pop into my streams, and they're just the loveliest of people. So just want to shout out to them.
They absolutely are, and I will do a shout out as well, because I don't think I've done any mod love yet on this stream. Moderators, thank you so much. You are wonderful and amazing, and keep the chat a safe place for everyone, which is really important. And moderators, just because I always forget to ask you in other ways, if you wish to get in contact with me, I have a little Christmas gift for you all. So get in contact with me whatever way you wish, because you are awesome.
Hey, I'm a moderator as well.
Are you? Where's that mute button gone? Patrons, thank you very much as well. This is going to be my last live stream of the year. There will be another video or two coming out later on. So I won't be around this time next week, but I will be back 2 weeks' time, which is something like the 5th of January. thank you, everyone. The reason why I invited these wonderful people on is because they are wonderful. They're friends and also excellent content creators. So I heartily recommend all of them to you. So guys, thank you so much. There will be links appearing in just one moment to things like other videos I've done and stuff like that. But for now, I will just say thank you to everyone who donated. Thank you, wonderful people on this stream. Take care, everyone. If you celebrate, have a wonderful Christmas and a great couple of weeks, and I will be back later. Bye.